All right, ladies and gentlemen, and everything possibly in between in the cross core. We just concluded the live front to back session, mostly with Michael Villalta, but later then Jay from Reminitions, California. We listened to the entirety of the album, reminisced on Misery Eternal, talked about some musicians behind the scenes that were involved in technically their first full length effort. And now, well, we get into the actual crosscast people. This is a very, very, very important session to me because, like I said in the live stream, this is going to be an opportunity that I think will help us kind of ascend and climb into higher tiers as far as the gateway level deathcore bands. No gimmick, no specific aesthetic so far that the band is tailing after. Just heavy breakdowns, shock factor, all that shit, tailored and themed loosely around horror, having some audio samples, possibly from some horror films. We'll figure out all the context of that as we go along. But of course, gentlemen, how are we doing after that live stream? I know, Jay, you kind of got in later, but hope we're doing good.
It was a breeze.
You guys ready for a good old questionnaire? All the clickbait shit?
Let's go.
Let's go. So, of course, if you haven't listened to the Anatomy Crosscast by now, I don't know what to tell you. This is my attempt at world domination, telling the stories of as many bands on an international, global, Earth local scale as possible. Hopefully one day even the extraterrestrials will tune in. We'll see. But this is going to be another one for the books people, because tonight we are talking with Jay and Michael Villalta as a first date crosscast after the publishing, after the public domain upload of both of their Misery Eternal EPs. Well, we didn't exactly make it to the album release party or the EP release party for either part 1 or part 2, but that will be for next time, I think, if the first date goes well, right? So as first dates go, as we're getting cozy and I'm attempting to bring the flowers, I didn't bring a bouquet this time, but maybe next time, right? I'll pay the bill. I'll kind of take lead in the conversation, make things as easy as possible. But this is the Anatomy Crosscast, people. My name is Sean Cross. We're currently 990 subscribers, hopefully by the end of this one or the end of the live stream, over on Sean Cross. And then with the Anatomy Crosscast YouTube channel, now with 166 videos, 110 subscribers. Well, let's keep that up, shall we? Let's get those numbers up, because we recently did, earlier this year, a 4-hour session with Lucrezia, having them return, doing that good old second date fashion, listening to the EP way before the actual release, right? And then not only that, I've been having guests along the way appear on the show. We are going to be making some massive announcements here pretty soon for 3 additional co-hosts on top of the one that I announced at the beginning of this year in the Anatomy Crosscast. Again, if you haven't listened to it, I don't know what the fuck to tell you, but we have 2 major parts to this podcast. And as per the recommendation of legendary Down Under vocalist, vegan activist, front person, Dane Evans, and the rest of the boys into the grave, we try to make the process for recording these crosscast sessions as seamless as possible by breaking it into several hour-long segments. That way, the boys in chat and the host alike don't have a sweaty ass by the time they're sitting up and getting ready to do something else in life after the fact, okay? But in the first half, we're going to be talking about the people. We're going to be telling the stories of, so far, the 2 musicians that we have in chat. And most likely, by the time they are preparing the queued singles leading up to their next album, hopefully we can get the rest of the guys on the show, tell their story, and kind of have that wrapped up. And then one day, we're basically like, what's up, dude? Listen to the album. How you doing? Good. New albums? Yeah, kinda. And then boom, this will be a continued tradition as long as the first date goes well. But part 1, people, Jay, Michael, whoever wants to start first, really. We have a scripted questionnaire, of course, as per good old Anatomy Crosscast fashion. So I'll go ahead and pull that up while you guys are kind of just hanging out, right? And what we're going to do is I'm going to utilize this good old podcast questionnaire, this crosscast questionnaire, and going to provide you guys a couple questions. But whoever wants to start, this is a pretty easy one. Go ahead and take about 10 to 20 minutes. I hope I'm not too loud. I'm echoing hella over there. Okay. I want either of you to start off by taking 10 to 20 minutes. Tell us about you from the surface level, as if you're speaking and standing before an elementary level class. It's like, hey, my name is Jay. I scream on the side, but I also do this and that. I grew up in this city, and then we'll kind of proceed from there. Whoever wants to go first.
You're up, Michael.
All right. Well, my name is Michael, but I don't know. A few things about me. Let's see. I love being around my family. They mean the world to me. My wife, well, fiance, she means everything to me. And let's see. Trying to think what else I can say. As far as like about myself, I do love music, dude, and I mean I think that's why me and Jay both do it. But one thing that like really got me inspired was a lot of the local bands when I was younger. There's one in particular that really got me into like heavier music and got me into literally doing this. And yeah, I started listening to, I think what got me into like rock was I listened to Metallica's Saint Anger album. That's how I was introduced to metal. One of my uncles brought it over and he was like, check this out. And I was like, what the fuck is that? And then he's like, I don't know, but it sounds cool. So that was how I got into it. Then I listened to like Linkin Park, and then it just kind of grew from there. But let's see, I'm 30 years old, and yeah.
It's a pretty good start, I would say. Jay?
Well, I'm Jay. I scream. I'm a store manager at a skate shop. I'm addicted to breakdowns.
As per the name Breakdown King.
Maybe. Have mental breakdowns daily. I have 2 cats, and I'm super into horror, as you can tell. And I really like the beats that Michael makes. That's the only reason I'm with him. He's not even a cool guy. I'm just with him for the beats, actually. Right? That's what I was saying. He just sleeps. I don't even know how he writes, to be honest.
He does it subconsciously. He's like a little drool running out of his mouth. He's like riffing.
Yeah.
Dun, dun, dun.
But it is definitely hard to like find a group of dudes with like schedules that can mix together and we actually like get along and stuff. And Michael is probably like one of the closest members to me than like all the rest of them, just because you know he writes the instruments, I scream over him, and then everyone else does everything like in between. But we're kind of like the brainchild of everything happening and experimental stuff and making like the big choices. But yeah, it's definitely like being a manager at my store kind of like smears into my band sometimes. So me and Michael kind of keep each other level headed.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's my favorite thing for sure. Music is the way.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, you know, again, as per the title upon you entering chat being the Breakdown King, people, if you haven't seen Filthy Breakdowns or Breakdown King as a social media platform, this dude makes some of the funniest breakdown clips I think I've ever seen. When it's not Filthy Breakdowns, it's Breakdown King, okay? And most importantly, I've gotten a couple friends into metal through the clips that I've shown him of like various slam and deathcore bands, and you see like a school classroom worth of like Chinese students, and they're just like ba ba ba, and like who knows what the band is, but it works and it's funny as
Yeah.
shit. So it
100%.
ends up being very, very attractive on a brain rot surface level. But I mean, that's how you get people intrigued. And they're like, okay, so what does this guy actually do? Okay, there's no way he's just shit posting or just posting edits with breakdowns in them. Okay. And you'd be right, because they are the two most important pieces when it comes to consistently managing and attending to the social aspect. And, you know, that's why they're here as far as I'm concerned. When it wasn't the, I don't know, the last minute planning on my part. Of course, we were all like, okay, Monday, period. Monday, let's make it happen. And then I'm like, hey, how about like right now? And they're like, oh, fuck. I'm kind of a dick and I'm trying to get better with that. I don't do it intentionally, though. So I appreciate both of the guys from Reminitions, both of like two of the figurehead members, really, not even just the vocalist for the sake of frontman syndrome, because fuck that shit for the most part, let's say. But also, you know, these guys make sure that Reminitions presents itself in a great limelight, and I think that's why this is going to be such a prominent first date. If we were comparing and utilizing that anatomy formula, the tradition, and depersonalizing all of them into one being, well, these guys are definitely the brains, or at least the two eyeballs, okay? Something like that. They see the path before them and they pave it accordingly. But I appreciate both of you then providing more of an elementary level introduction of who you are, what you do, maybe shit you do outside of music, because I always love to hear about that. You know, it's not always about like the main thing we happen to be hosting you for. It's like, no, are you fucking like, are you an automotive tech or something on the side? Do you manage a panic room for a living? You know, that
Michael's
type of
actually a Pokemon expert.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I've never played Pokemon, but good shit.
You would ask me this.
He doesn't even play the game. He just collects and sells. He does not even play.
It's a market. It's a market. I'm learning about a new market with fucking Hot Wheels, man. I didn't realize that if you find the right ones, you can sell them for pretty good money. I'm like, what
That is
the hell?
disgusting. How much money you could make off those things? Crazy.
One of my coworkers, shout out to Larry, last name I'm not going to disclose, but he's become a good buddy of mine, and he kind of introduced me to the potency and the relevance and the what you could do in that industry.
Yeah, that's
in
crazy.
That niche little market. Same thing as Bionicles, and I think the first time he mentioned this to me, apparently he's built a reputation amongst some of the Mesa, Arizona local Walmarts, but everybody's like, okay, watch out for Larry, because he's gonna buy all the really he's gonna buy all the Hot Wheels that you could sell for like $40 a piece or something. It's so funny.
Michael, dude. Everyone in Porterville knows Michael. They're like, oh man, Walmart's cleaned out of Pokemon cards. Michael also came.
There we go. I love that, how that parallels and how that compares, and therefore this conversation becomes even more personal, eh?
That's what I'm saying.
That's the beauty of it. That's what we do here on the Crosscast, is we connect bridges that you wouldn't expect, and I always love to see it. So, of course, more or less, both of you gentlemen told me a little bit about yourselves, right? As if you're standing before me as an elementary school teacher. Just, okay, Jay, tell us a little bit about yourself. Where'd you grow up? Where are you from? Ooh, like all that shit. But seriousness, raw. In regards to our questionnaire, right? I think a really, really fun thing, and this is just like from instinct, right? This is the impression I've received, is that you guys are pretty involved in your scene. So I think let's go ahead and skip over actually to question number 3, the scene, part A. Growing up, as you got more into metal and rock, or possibly even other genres entirely, okay? Doesn't have to be metal. Did you have other people in school or in your local community who helped push you forward? I think this question ends up applying better to Michael. So, Michael, tell us a little bit about your involvement in the scene, my friend.
Well, when I was younger, dude, this was maybe 2008, 2000. Yeah, I'd say 2008. I was probably about like 15 years old, dude. And I would go to the local shows out here. And back then, dude, those shows were it felt like what you would see in those movies where like it's underground rock, like you go in some shady spot and then out of nowhere you see these like popping off shows. And there was a few spots that were like that, but that I remember. But those shows were the ones that really got me into like um, just wanting to do it. There was a local band called Throne of Agony, which is funny. The last run that we had, Jay wasn't able to do 3 of those days, and the vocalist to that band actually filled in for Jay. And it was just cool because I was finally able to perform with like one of the dudes that got me into like metal and hardcore music. And it's just, yeah, so I think it was like, yeah, 2008. I went to the first show, I saw them and just continued to follow them, and that's what got me into wanting to play like very heavy, heavy music. And but yeah, I mean, I've been in it since 2008. I wouldn't say I'm like very, very involved now, like I used to be. But I do go to the occasional show here and there, and just kind of have the adult life now, so can't,
Fair enough.
can't go
Yeah.
around. But I do love being involved. Like now, as I'm older, I do love being able to help out those that I can. So whether it's gear, whether it's like learning how to work their gear,
Right.
anything that I can do to honestly help out our community is honestly what I do love to do. And wherever I can, I think Jay and like the rest of the guys know I'll do my best to extend my hand, but nothing to where it's like overstepping to anybody. But if anybody ever needs the help, I try to do my best, and I think that's something very kind of what Jay does as well. Like Jay is a little more involved of like going to shows and stuff, and that's something that I do love hearing when I'm like around others. Is like they'll bring up, oh, dude, Jay, this, he's helping us out. I'm like, what the fuck? Jay's doing that? Like, why didn't you tell me, bro? So, like, I think genuinely Jay's a little more involved than I am now. But
Okay.
like, what inspired me and what like kind of brought me into this was a local band called Throne of Agony. They're the reason why Reminitions is what it is, and why it's kind of leaning more towards like what I like to say, like a progressive deathcore kind of feel. So.
Yeah. Hell yeah. Well, in that case, Jay, poor Jay over here is like, motherfucker, I'm a lot more involved in the scene. Let me at him. Let me at him. So let's go ahead and ask you the same question, brother. So what's your history with the local scene? How did you first get involved with your local community? And I mean, Throne of Agony, that would be the first band that Michael would even mention, really. So if that's kind of like his involvement as he's becoming a father now, congratulations, by the way, that's awesome. Yeah, I know. I'm waiting just to get the marriage part done, or will you marry me eventually? Just trying to get that part, let alone getting ready for kids. But Jay, tell us a little bit about what we should know about the Southern California scene.
You're talking about like when I first got into it, or like currently?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
When you first got into it.
So, man, what was the first show? It had to have been like at the where we live. It's called the CYC, like in Fresno. And I think also, and that was far away from me because I lived in like Porterville at the time, which is like probably like an hour away. But I remember hearing about people like even in my small town like doing bands, and they were gonna have like a metal in the park concert. And I was like, what is that? And basically it was just literally like in this one park that we had in Porterville, they just set up a whole bunch of speakers and like local bands played. And I was just like, this is sick. Like, I didn't realize that we actually had people playing stuff that I like in my own city. Because where we live, it's kind of like, it's all about like tractors and farms and like raising pigs for freaking a contest for school. Like, I was just like not wanting any of that. And so, those bands, I kind of started following them, and they started to play like in Fresno. And once I got kind of exposed to that scene, it just kind of opened up like hundreds of doors, because there was already like 10 bands killing it. There was already so many bands playing shows that like basically doing everything I ever wanted to do. But I didn't even know how to scream. I was just like a big fan of like metal in general. So at some point, I met a drummer, and he was basically telling me like we have somebody in our band that's kind of like on his way out. Like there's a chance that we have a spot open for a vocalist, and we want you to come to our show and check us out and see if like you like us. And so I go, and it's Reminitions, and I'm like hearing these breakdowns, and I'm like, well, that's like I need that in every song, and they have breakdowns in every song, and this is would technically be like my first band. And so I told them, yeah. And so they wanted me to try out, and I basically like I was in a room with the drummer, and we were playing Beartooth like through the speakers, and I didn't want to scream like at him because I've never performed before. So I was like, I'm gonna turn around and I'm gonna scream at this wall. And then if you think I sound good, then maybe I can scream on a mic one day, you know. And so he heard me scream, and he was like, dude, like let's do this. Like we're so down to have you a part of the band, you know. And so once we kind of started playing our first shows, so many people wanted to become my friend that it was just nuts. It's just like you have so many bands that you want to support, but there's just like so little time in the day, and like your schedule is probably really hard with work. But we have like our really good friends like in dear distance, where like if we can make it to their show, like we try, because they're such good hearted people. But like you just with so many bands kind of like starting, it's just hard to go to every single show, especially because we've made friends in like the deathcore scene, we've made friends in the hardcore scene, and it's just like every weekend there's a show, and then you try to mix in going into like seeing your favorite bands. So it's hard to kind of support everybody. But for me, like if I'm online though, and it just takes one share, or if it just takes one like or one comment to help out like any of my locals, like I'm gonna do it. Like it literally doesn't take anything out of me. And so anybody that truly knows me and like we're good friends, we'll have that conversation. Well, I'll tell them like, hey, if you have any promo or any videos you're trying to do, like let me help you, you know, just collaborate with me, message me. Like I may not be able to talk to you or see you in person all the time, but if I can do anything to help you, even remotely, you know, like just let me know, you know. So I try to stay connected with like everybody.
That's fair. Yeah. And I mean, if you're building the following that you have so far, and if you have indeed become the breakdown king that I've seen you become since I first started listening to you guys, the editing and promotions you guys do to just even make people laugh because they just can't mentally comprehend the breakdowns, as per even Nick Nocturnal mentioned, it contributes so much to the scene, and people don't realize that. So
Yeah.
for all the bands that you've promoted so far, for all the bands, big and small, that you've provided spotlight to, I mean, not that it means much, but you know, we all appreciate you. We all thank you for that, and just know that you are appreciated, and your hard work is paying off now. Because now, not only have you been making those edits, but you've had your own thing for a little bit now with Reminitions, and now it's steadily growing. And like I said, you better fucking bet your ass is going to be a prolific band for the Fresno scene, the Southern California scene, possibly even California. We'll see what happens. But I know
Yeah.
Reminitions is going to be a very, very important band to remember going into the near future. So,
Thank you.
yeah, of course. So then speaking upon that, continuing upon that question really regarding, quote, the scene, are there any local heroes that are currently climbing the ranks? Question mark. Were you in any bands or band projects before Reminitions, and what caused the fork in the road that had you depart from those projects? And this is easily a question for both of you, whoever wants to go first, and then the other after.
You go, Michael.
I went first last time. You got this.
Okay. So I would say like locally, it's kind of like it's hard to say like which bands are killing it, because there's so many of them like really like trying their hardest like out there. But I know for sure all of them, like I can't think of them like all right now, but
Right.
if I forget to say a name, like don't think I don't love you, but just the ones that stick out in my head that like I'm talking to a lot is my best friend's band Bone Crown. They have the drummer of like Impending Doom that really not a lot of people like know about that. But Bone Crown is literally like everything that he shows me and the instrumentals that they're doing, freaking top notch. And then we got our buddies like in Sleep Serpent. they've literally been writing, releasing music, trying really, really hard to play like as many shows, sell tickets, all that good stuff. Our buddies in Dear Distance killing it as well. They just played like a really big festival recently, and it was really nice to see them get the appreciation that they deserve, because some of these bands like used to be other bands, and they've like tried to start new names, and it, you know, it's a hard climb, you know. If you lose your traction from like playing all those shows as a certain name and you try to rebrand, it's like sometimes it takes like even longer the second time around to be known as much as you were the first time.
Yeah.
Who else has been really killing it? Our buddies in Bulldog, our buddies in Full Clip, but those are more like hardcore. Who else, Michael, has been killing it? Last of Lucy, Eternal Bloom.
Oh, yeah.
Eternal Bloom, yeah. Last of Lucy as well. I've tried to get both of them on the show recently, and we almost got the Last of Lucy on. Hopefully we can get them on either sometime this year or next year, as well as Eternal Bloom.
Our bass player is the guitarist to Eternal Bloom, and then the bass player to Last of Lucy.
Love that.
Yeah.
Dude's busy then, huh?
Yeah. He's an incredible musician, dude. I think bands that are outside of like our area that I think are really like killing it. You mentioned one of them, Ritual Despair. Those are really cool dudes. Or a really good friend, David. I always confuse the two. There's two buddies that we have. It's In Chaos and Out of Chaos, right, Jay?
Yeah.
Those two bands are really freaking good. One, In Chaos, is from Sacramento. Out of Chaos, is from LA, and those two bands are really freaking good. They're killing it. And then
no, I think it's the opposite.
No, In Chaos is
In Chaos is Sacramento. Out of Chaos is LA.
That's what I said.
Is it?
Now me thinking him saying no, it's the
wrong.
opposite. It's like that is like them not doing well. I'm like, oh shit.
Yeah. I thought we were talking about locals. We're going outside the locals.
Well, yeah, like
wow. Okay, so then A Moment's Notice, Titan, Decayer. Got a whole bunch of buddies.
I think overall, dude, yeah. When we go out, we do like to just get involved with everybody else, dude. It's not just locally here for us anymore. Honestly, like when we're just playing, we try to make friends with everybody and just kind of get acquainted with them. You know, at the end of the day, we want to make friends with who we can, and just kind of, if we can like befriend them and get to know them, hopefully we can do more stuff with them in that area, you know. And so just always try to network.
Right, absolutely.
Collaborations.
So, I mean, that definitely provides spotlight and limelight to various California and Arizona local bands that you guys have just ran into over time, that are all playing the same exact game of trying to slowly climb that ladder, right, and make a name for themselves, which is always so sick to see. And I know you guys were doing that for a long time. I think it's safe to say too, after the the Misery Eternal era. Don't quote me on that, right? On the Misery Eternal era, I think this is truly going to help you guys skyrocket into new heights. And I think this is going to be helping you as you prepare and continue cooking up shit like everybody else is doing. It's crazy to see, and it's unfathomable thinking about all the musicians right now who are just like cranking, just like, okay, this riff, fuck, you know, like they're like, no, that's not it. And that, like, just so many people doing that. Or you got the drummer who's like trying to learn how to blast beat, and he's like, fuck, like all the obstacles and complications that come with becoming a musician, seasoning yourself, and then creating music. Well, it's always happening. It's always happening, no matter what. It's very strange to think about, and it's like, well, definitely zone in on your shit before like you're thinking about all these other bands. Like, man, is there even a point? Like, no, don't do that, please, because there is never enough music in the world. There's never enough art. There's never enough true and heavy counterculture music in the world. So keep at it, people. We love to see it happen, and hopefully we'll be talking to many bands like Bone Crown, like Decayer. I want to talk to all these bands, to be honest, and make sure that they all get their necessary spotlight, even with my small platform or smaller platform. So far, we'll see. Hopefully, the numbers of bands that we have overwhelm the algorithm. It's like, this band is everywhere.
Yeah.
But then we move on, I think, to just asking either of you really, were you in any bands beforehand? And of course, you don't have to talk about the drama because it doesn't really matter anymore, right? What happened. If there was drama, now you're in Reminitions, boom. But like, how many projects have either of you been in before Reminitions, if you were in any?
So, like, this is super funny to remember right now. Like, now that you're asking me that question, but there used to be a time when my buddy, God, what was his name? I forgot what his name was, but the other guy's name was Cameron, and it was just guitarist, and then Cameron was the vocalist, and then I was supposed to be the bassist. And Cameron ended up going on to be in Hotel Books. He's like the lead singer of Hotel Books. And it was just so random because we were just in this little garage just doing breakdowns and some random riffs and stuff like that. But that never literally got past the garage form.
I see.
After that, I did bass for this band called Malice in the Eyes of Medusa. It was when all band names had like really long names. And then I went from bass in that band to the second vocalist, and then that band dissipated. And then when I moved to Visalia, I met some new people, and we tried to form a band again, but it didn't make it outside the garage. And then it kind of probably like a year or two later is when I auditioned for Reminitions. So I've probably been like, I wouldn't even say there were bands. We were just having fun.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Cool.
I don't know about Michael though.
Michael disappeared.
I know he
Michael
was in
chat.
he was in this band called Limits. That was like the most known one that he was in.
Okay. Sick. Well, if he's able to return, and if he decides to return, we'll go ahead and have him talk. Oh, there he is. Okay. Speak of the devil. All right. He has returned. Okay.
Right.
Jay
Sure
talked
enough.
about all the bands that he's been in before. Now it's your turn.
All right.
I told them about your Limits days.
Yeah, there was like a high school band that I was in that did nothing, and then I was in a band called Limits, and that one was really cool. We were getting places, but we got nowhere near where Reminitions is. And then I think as right when that ended is when I was supposed to join Reminitions. And then this was, dude, it was funny. I think Jay was like, dude, you should come check us out and see what you think. And I was like, all right. So I go, and then I think shoot, hold on 1 second. All right. Sorry about that. I was getting a call. What ended up happening, when I started selling cars for work. Just my schedule was just horrible. So then back, I think, so that didn't happen. And then during COVID, that's when I met, I already knew Scott, but I started talking to him a little bit more. And then I did a project with him. And pretty much from there, I think like a few months after, Jay was like, you wanna do Reminitions again? And I was like, yeah, hell yeah. And that's where, I think there was only like 3 bands that I was in. Limits, one with Scott, and then with Jay. But that's pretty much it.
Mhm.
Sick. Okay. I think then that would be a pretty casual migration, really transition into question 4, and this is called location. Okay. And question 4, part A reads, what is something you can tell us about where you're from geographically speaking? And this is just like the first thing that comes to your mind. And eventually this will allude to how do you think this incorporates the culture, the environment, your surrounding area. Maybe it's a major city, maybe it's a small city. Like there are definitely certain things in where you live that affect what you create, right? And affect how you write music, I think. And that's why we asked this question. So whoever wants to go first, what is something you could tell us about where you're from originally speaking? And telling us about it doesn't have to do anything with music, but eventually we'll attempt to segue into that.
Yeah.
I think we since we're in California, we live kind of like near the bay. We're kind of in a spot where like hardcore is like really, really, really popular over here. So like when we go to shows, or like previously when we've gone to shows before we were in bands and stuff, like you kind of have an idea of like, okay, people want to punch each other during these breakdowns. People want to dance during these two steps. People want to run in circles for these type of riffs. So you're kind of like taking notes. And like where we're from, like during the hardcore shows is like they write those songs so well for the crowd, and the crowd is always moving that you kind of have to like take notes. So a lot of the mixed shows that we play with that have like heavy metal, deathcore, and hardcore, we basically can tell like, okay, like we really need to be writing for the crowd. Like I can tell from these hardcore people that we need to start putting more hardcore fluences into our stuff so we can get those hardcore kids out here. Because some of these deathcore kids are like, they've been coming to our shows like a lot, but we're trying to like chop up our music into more genres so that way we can get even more people to get into our stuff. So adding those little hints of like two steps in there, and maybe like some trap beats in our new songs. All those is basically trying to like appease more people and trying to make like the crowd kind of go wild. So I feel like that is where we're from. It just, because hardcore is so prevalent, it's kind of definitely affected like our music. I don't know about Michael like instrumentally, but vocally, like at least, there's not like a specific type of vocals that's like killing it right now, like where we're from. But it's definitely like the energy, like the bands that are doing really good have like a lot of energy on stage, and so like you could see that like when you go to the shows. I don't know if that's like that everywhere.
Fair enough, yeah. And I mean that's something that I remember talking about well into knowing a Havasu City local slam hip hop band called Virulent. Those are some of my bestest friends really in the music industry. If you guys haven't had the opportunity to listen to them or talk to them, definitely do so. They're really fun people, and I think they're going to be the future of slam. Like they're going to be a very, very important band for AZ local slam. But one thing that Tristan talked about in our most recent session in regards to their Necro Thug and EP that they dropped earlier this year was just writing even full EPs worth of music that cater better to a hardcore crowd, writing another one that caters better to a traditional crowd, or a good mix of those for the more like these are our fans, right? That's definitely something they're doing, and it's been interesting to at least so far only hear that from them. Just like, oh yeah, we're writing multiple split EPs with bands from around the world, from various niche subgenres of the culture. That way we can apply better, and that way hopefully more people will be hearing us. For me, it's always when it comes to songwriting, it's always been about, okay, well, definitely something similar to that, but more or less I think about it as writing, for example, what I'm doing with my own band is more or less tribute album. So it's like, okay, I've listened to this major culture, which is, for example, metallic hardcore / no gimmick deathcore. Planning on writing an album in the future called Betray : Be Pray, and that's going to cater better to that community. There's going to be a couple like anime themed albums, very similar to what Brand of Sacrifice did with God Hand and Lifeblood for certain shows. But overall, it's like it's going to be a strange combination between like at least 5 different bands, and I'm hoping to sustain that genre radical DNA. And genre radical is not even an official word yet, but that's always what I say. Just like genre radical. It's just trying to chase after a niche and like a marketing strategy in the industry. But I guess writing EPs or even singles that cater better to this crowd or this crowd is new to me. I'm seeing it a lot more, and you guys so far are the sequel to that philosophy. So it's always very fascinating to hear, and well, I look forward to hearing what you guys decide to write that caters better to your local hardcore scene.
Right.
That should be really fucking sick.
Because it's like you don't. I guess for us at least, like we don't just want to be known as like deathcore musicians. Like we want to
Right.
be known as musicians. So we want to show that Reminitions is capable more than just doing like Neanderthal riffs, you know. So like we have more like there's about like 12 songs that we're working on right now. And some of them are like dramatically different than other ones as far as like structure and like the way they sound and stuff like that. But it's definitely one of those things where because we've been just such tough guy deathcore guys, I just have always never wanted singing in our songs. So it's just like we'll never be that, we'll never sell out, like we'll always be the guys that always scream and they can always count on us. But me, Michael, our drummer LZ, like we can all clean sing pretty well, but it's just something that we've never wanted to like force in our songs. We wanted it to be like natural and actually like written specifically for singing. And the main reason is because we're tired of people like bands that are very, very popular coming around our city, and these random ass bands that I've never even heard of are opening up for them. And I'm asking our promoter, I'm like, why are you choosing them over us? Like we always kill it. And it's like, oh, because you guys don't sing. And I'm like, that's ridiculous. Like we're musicians, we're talented, like we make good music. I want to play with freaking, like, I guarantee you, if Elisana came back, it's gonna be some goth band who like literally has 300 monthly streams on Spotify that looks just like Elisana. But I'm sitting there thinking like, how come we can't play? It's just literally because we don't sing. That just like it makes no sense, you know.
That's
So
fair.
now I'm gonna throw it back in their face and be like, oh, like you want us to sing? Well, we have these 3 songs with singing on it, and we actually kill it. And so now you have no excuse. So we're basically building set lists for different genres so that way they can never turn us down.
That's fair. Yeah, that's fair.
Kind of
It's
capitalize
better
on all the
to-
markets.
Yeah, that's fair. It's definitely the future of music because there are so many more bands than ever before. I thought that we had a bunch of bands when I first started this YouTubing shit. I thought we had a bunch of bands when I first really started getting into, and this is the best way to describe it. Of course, I was casually listening to music a lot growing up, but then I actually became fascinated in the order of single, pre-order. You know, I was always fascinated by that click now to pre-order this album that might not have any lyrical substance, but the album cover is cool, right? I was like, okay, that's pretty cool. We'll talk about the no lyrical substance later, but this is pretty cool. Like, you know, you got the pre-order merch packages. Back in the day, they'd put like stickers in the CD cases. I'm like, what? You know, I would always love that shit. And I'm seeing it less and less these days because, well, oftentimes maybe it's not in demand, maybe it's been outdated, maybe the manufacturing for the stickers and the press machines involved with them is a pain in the ass to work with. Maybe the only companies that you can do that through are also a pain in the ass, who knows. But like over time, it's like I've been actually invested into the marketing strategy of single, whoa, EP. But look at this, the EP cover is also the album cover, but super zoomed in. Whoa, like I was talking about this with Michael earlier. That's some of the juiciest shit ever because it keeps you intrigued. And if you have the right artists, like you can focus on various assets in the album cover, whatever. Right. So as the marketing approach and how you promote your music, the art that you buy, the money that you put into the music, production, everything, they're all very important components of hopefully one day making a career off of being a musician. So you have all that, you put it off to the side, and then you're like, you know what? We want to play this show. We want to open up for Within Destruction. And yeah, unfortunately, half the time, the promoters, not that I would know because I've never played a show. I've only played by myself in front of a small group of parents for a high school. So I'm like, And that was the acoustic, the Beartooth the Lines low gain mix.
Oh,
I played that. I played that in front of a crowd. That was pretty fun. It was pretty intimidating, especially when I had my teacher looking at me like, "You need to strum this chord, like you're doing this wrong." I'm like, "Fucking stop looking at me!" And like, there was a whole bunch of shit that went in with that. So technically, I played live, but not really. So I can only imagine the conversations you have to have or the money you have to pay to get into those shows. And then you have like sometimes that big old wall just like, oh, you don't clean sync, so we can't have you on. It's like,
Yeah.
the fuck you mean, dude? Well, the hell you mean? We could
Yeah,
be
like the bands will have breakdowns, like the bands will have deathcore songs, but they happen to sing, so it's like, oh, we didn't think you guys would fit well, you know, like, oh yeah, like that makes no sense.
yeah,
But it's
who
cool
knows,
that that's
right?
why we're kind of giving them a reason to not be able to turn us away.
Exactly. And I look forward to hearing because you said there are what was it? It was you, Michael, and your drummer.
Mhm.
That can clean sing, dude. I've been waiting for more bands like While She Sleeps to emerge into the forefront. You know, I want to hear more choir bands that basically you get to hear if While She Sleeps was one person, like with that band, you get to hear what that one voice sounds like. That's always been so intriguing to me. And that's why While She Sleeps in and of itself, despite the ambience or even the piano piece interludes with Division Street on So What. No, that's Sleep Society. Sorry. That's why bands like that are so intriguing to me. And they all have their application and their placement in that Hall of Fame in true counterculture on a global scale to me. So I wait to see what could be possibly a Reminitions chorus or a Reminitions choir. That'd be fucking sick.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, of course, we've been reminiscing on question 4 part A for a little bit. So part B, would you say your history and the place you grew up and were born in affected the way that you would write music? And Jay, you actually gave one of the best answers for question 4 part A that I've heard so far. So this is a little bit different, right? Let's challenge you a little bit with your music scene marketing knowledge and trying to be a promoter for all of these bands, which you've been doing a great job. Let's go ahead and try to challenge you, get you away from that. So the area that you're in, that being Fresno, Southern California, would you say it affected the way that you would end up writing music?
Well, I'm originally from Los Angeles,
Fair enough.
and when I kind of started getting into like heavier music, as far as like As I Lay Dying, the bands, the people that were like my friends, they were kind of doing like little local shows and stuff like that, and I kind of really like found out what breakdowns were, and they ended up becoming like my favorite thing. And then they were playing covers too of like The Devil Wears Prada. It was just something that I was just like, I would never have heard these songs if I wasn't exposed to those type of friends. So they kind of like carved me into like wanting to write like those artists. Like I wanted to do what they did. I wanted to say really cool stuff before breakdowns. I wanted to have like movie quote inserts in my songs. So I definitely feel like growing up, like a lot of those things that I liked have definitely like molded me into doing like exactly what I wanted to do when I was younger.
Awesome. Love that response. It ends up making the sense of community that much more stronger because it ended up sewing into your creative approach. Love to hear it. How about you, Michael?
I apologize, but would you be able to repeat the question?
Yeah, of course.
So how many Pokemon cards do you have right now?
70,000. So question 4 part B would be, would you say your history in the place you grew up and were born in affected the way that you would write music?
Yeah. I really do. Back to where, like how I started listening to this kind of music was, like I mentioned, it was my 8th grade year, which was 2008, and it was the town that I lived in was called is called Reedley, and around it are these just like 10 little towns: Reedley, Parlier, Sanger, Fowler, and Kingsburg. Then it goes into like Fresno or Visalia and Porterville. And it's like that's the Central Valley kind of area where we live. And that's where a lot of like, dude, back then shows were happening every freaking weekend. They were packed the hell out. Like it's not just, dude, there could be 3 shows going on in the same town and then like one other one next, like on the in the next town, and it would still be packed, dude. Like
Right.
it was just ridiculous. And
Yeah.
because of that, that's I truly do feel, yeah, like it influenced me to like certain bands or like certain music and then get into what we're doing now. And it's just because of that. Like it's because of where I'm from. I don't think if I was any, I don't know how LA is or those different areas are, but just here it was just shows left and right, and that's what got me into it.
Oh
I
yeah.
don't know about you too, but I always felt like before I was even in a band or even learned how to scream, when I would watch people like at cons, like I remember watching All That Remains and just being like, I can do that. Like what he's doing on stage, I can do that. And it's just weird. Like we're fucking doing it, dude.
Yeah.
Well, not on that scale, but
Well, not yet. One day. One day, guaranteed. Are you fucking kidding me? So, question 4, part C. Maybe this is kind of like beating the horse. I guess when I was typing in these questions, it felt like they had enough distinction between them, but we'll see. Would you say that you are connected to this day to where you were born and raised, whether on a local scene basis or maybe even just thinking back upon your childhood and where you came from? Like, do you often reflect upon where you came from positively in writing music, or maybe do you reflect upon current music, already out music, or future music, maybe in a more like, man, I really wish I was born in a different town? Like, that can always be a thing. So I think that's more or less why we asked that question. So if not, why?
you go, Michael.
So as far as I'm still connected, it's like a yes or a no, or yes and a no, because a lot of the shows that were like that I remember, they're not hosted in those areas anymore. Like it's not around. Like shows where I lived in Reedley, probably hasn't been a show in years. Parlier, Sanger, all those little towns where they used to be big, it's gone. Like that whole like scene is just gone. Like now, if you hear about like where the show's at, it's where we're from. It's like Fresno, which is an hour away from me where I live. And even back then, when I lived in that little town called Reedley, Fresno was still about like 40 minutes away from me. Um, this area is very like a farm town community. And then there's like there are 3 big cities. We have Bakersfield, Visalia, and then Fresno, which are like where me and Jay are. We're like right in the middle of those. And so it's like, yes, now we like to what I grew up with, no, but are we involved with it now? Yes. Like, we'll go to shows here and there. I don't go to as many because I'm further than Jay.
Right.
So, dude, if I was closer, I would probably be there every other time that I would get the chance. But yeah, for me, it's probably like an hour and 20 minutes just to get there.
So here's a pretty I don't know, this is pretty on the spot. This is me improvising this question in regards to your response. In the near future, do you see Reminitions attempting to help even like the smaller towns where you guys were from, right? Mainly you, Michael. Do you guys see in the near future Reminitions trying to get in touch with venues and promoters from that area to go ahead and host shows for those towns and bring back that energy?
So I tried a few years back. This was maybe about 2-3 years, and the city there just saw it more like as a nuisance. Like it's not
Right.
something that they see that's very safe and that they cared for. Like that little town where I was from, Reedley, they're a very Mennonite community. So it just went against whatever they have going on or whatever it is. But yeah, I wish I could, and really try to bring that into like the younger, like the youth, just because like a lot of the shows that me and Jay have been playing, or even like this last run we played in San Diego, and it reminded me of when I was a younger kid, dude. Like there were so many, dude. Like there was maybe, well, shoot, I'm 30, and hearing these kids, like some of them, I was talking to them, and I forgot how one of them threw their age. Because he had a kid, and this other dude next to me goes like, "Well, dude, how old are you? Because like you look like a kid." And he's like, "Oh, I'm 20," and his girlfriend was like 19, and they had a little 1-year-old there at the show, which kind of blew my mind. I was like, "Dude, this is so loud. Why would you do that?" But it reminded me like, damn, like they're young, and like I was even younger going to shows, and it's like it just put it in my head. Like I wish I could have brought this into like my hometown, because a lot of these kids don't know what those shows were like and what it is now. But because of these other like areas that we've played in that have that younger youth, it's freaking awesome. And that's why like I wish we could, but there's nothing in our control that we really can, just because of like for me in that town, they're just against it. And where I live now, I don't really have much connections to anybody here, so I wouldn't even know where to start.
Fair enough, man. Fair enough. Okay. Well, I do appreciate the answers that you both have provided so far. I know we've been here for a little bit, so I think we'll go ahead and ask one more question before we wrap up, only for now, and we'll kind of get the rest of the crosscast, the first date crosscast with Reminitions, handled at a different time, definitely by the end of the year. Let's go ahead and get this first one done, completed, and uploaded. You know what I mean? EP,
Yes.
Both EPs are out. So, final question, and I do believe this would apply pretty well to both of you, but better possibly to Michael. Are you a gearhead? Current setup, dream setup.
Yeah. So Jay knows I've pestered him about like even with gear and like what that gear will bring to the music. Like I want to be able to showcase that we are a good band. Not like, when it comes to gear, you don't always have to have the best of gear to have an amazing sound. And like growing up playing in my old band Limits, dude, I didn't have shit. Like the stuff that I got, like we live, like I mentioned, we live in a small like farm community. Like every little town is like a farm town, and besides like our big cities. But like for me, dude, like the gear that I had was like a super old Marshall with like a PV, what was it, a Valve King, which altogether was like $300, and and then a Schecter Hellraiser, which was expensive, but the rest of the gear wasn't. But like I worked my ass off for it in the fields, like working out there and getting that money for it. But as we are like older now, we have like some very like nice piece of gear, and that's something that I've told Jay. It's like, dude, we have to have this, we have to have that, and or else like our recording, even when we record, it's gonna sound like shit, and if it sounds like shit, I don't want to put it out. So it's like so like a rundown of my gear right now. I have a Mesa 412, which that was always my like dream cab. And then I used to have like what was a huge thing for me was a Helix rack. And that's basically like an amp head, just it has multiple different heads in it and like different pedals, basically an all-in-one unit. And I was running it through a Crown, what was it? A Crown 1000. And then just recently, I was able to upgrade and to some better equipment. Now I'm running a Quad Cortex with a Seymour Duncan. I forgot what it was. But long story short, dude, even that stuff, like it's super pricey, but I've gotten really like fortunate, and because of like the connections that we've made, not just from like Reminitions, but like my old band, I've met some really good individuals that, dude, whenever they're selling something, I'm like the first person they let know, or they'll be like, dude, my friend's selling this. So like the gear that I have right now, fuck, dude, if I would have bought this all brand new, yeah, right, I couldn't even afford it. Like it's, I think the Mesa is like well over $1,000. The Seymour Duncan power amp is like, I think well over 800. And then the rack case that I have for it, I think it was like another 3. There's a power conductor, another like 4. The quad is like $2,000, I think. Like, yeah, so like way over like $6,000, dude. And I got this for probably like $2,000, like through time. But yeah, gear is we now, like where we are, we have to have something that's up to date, current, and just because I want to be able to give everybody a show in every aspect. As far as sound, I know a lot of people say it doesn't have to sound like the album. To me, we gotta fucking sound like the album or better, Like and I hope none of that comes off with any arrogance, dude, because I mean that, like, because we've worked very fucking hard, and I want to be able to showcase that to everybody. Like when somebody listens to us, I want them to be like, fuck, like that was just as good as the album, or it's even better. Like, like damn, like, and we've had some small performances like that where I've had people like, dude, that sounded way better live, and it's because of the effort of really going into our gear. And shoot, I'll bug our other guitarists and I'll be like, dude, give me your fucking gear. I'm gonna mess with it, or I'm gonna do this with it.
Love that.
But
And
yeah.
so that would be speaking for the gear that you have currently, the gear setup that you've built up. Any dream toys?
Honestly, dude, if I could, if there was like one thing that I would want to try and have is so like I said, that I run the Quad Cortex, and the power amp is Seymour Duncan. I think in Mesa, I think it was like a Mesa. It's just called like a Mesa power amp, but this is different compared to like an actual amplifier. It's just like a Mesa power amp. It would. I've seen some really cool things out of it, but dude, it's hard to find, and it's also very fucking expensive. Like 10 years ago, it was like $1,000. Now I see them for like almost 2 to 3 grand. Yeah, and I'm like, I can't afford it. Like no, like there's no way I'll ever find a hookup on this. Like people that have it want it, and they're gonna keep it. So it's like it's hard to find, but that would be a dream to have right there with the current setup that I have.
Fair enough. Jay, I'm sure you kind of utilize most of the equipment of most of us vocalists out here, the Shure SM7B, Scarlett Focusrite, Cloud Lifter, all that, or okay.
Oh yeah. Well, as far as like recording goes,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then
Live,
as far as
I use a Telefunken, a nice little red Telefunken.
I'll tell you what.
Telefunken,
I'm talking shit.
you monster. Yeah, I don't have as much fancy gear with cool names and numbers like Michael. But I'm responsible for my gear as far as my clothes. I always have to have my hat. I always have to have a barbed wire necklace, and then really cool shoes.
he focuses on the drip as opposed to the gear.
That's my gear, bro. That's what I have to bring to the table.
Well, if I may, regarding the edits that you do, is there like a specific software that you use? Maybe people are interested in how to make the same shit that you do, or do you just kind of like utilize audio, mute the audio, and then put the music over it through like your PC? Like, how do you do all that?
There's like 3 different things I like to do. You can screen record real well, like on your iPhones. So like if I see something like on YouTube or something that I can't edit myself, like just through Instagram. I'll just screen record it and chop it up, and then I'll add like a cool caption to it and layer music over it. And the app that I use, the two apps that I use the most is CapCut. CapCut has a whole bunch of templates of just like random green screen, viral like people and viral things that are on TikTok and stuff, and it lets you be able to put whatever you want like behind it. So I use that, and then I use this app called I think it's called Meme Attic, and it basically just has a template for you to make different styles of like memes. And so if I see like a picture of something, or if I see like someone else who has a meme but it's about like basketball, I'll just chop out everything that has to do with basketball, and I'll just do a new meme with the same picture but make it metal relevant.
There you go. Okay, cool. I think people will love to hear about that. You know, it's pretty easy access now. The ways that you can
100%.
kind of like edit, mute videos, manipulate audio. It's pretty easy now, and it's
Mhm.
nice. But it also makes it to where just like easy access to production if you decide to get into engineering, or even the overwhelming volume and availability access to be able to make music, produce it, upload it. There's a little bit of saturation in there. So that's the only con really to me with any creative medium, is once enough people have the means to make the creative medium easy, and especially the good stuff easy, well, saturation. But other
Yeah.
than that, you know, as far as I'm concerned, the two main pages for breakdown edits would be Filthy Breakdowns and Breakdown King. So good shit. 1 out of 2
Thank you.
personalities from that vein. Yeah, of course. That's how it works, man. That's how it works. But for now, ladies and gentlemen, and everything possibly in between, only for now, that will be the end of this crosscast session. However, we still have plenty of questions to ask these boys, and we have yet to dig under the skin, track by track, and do lyrical analysis for the entirety of Misery Eternal. Tell any and all stories behind the scenes during the creative process, and then after, well, again, reminisce upon the whole process. Get a rating, possibly even by the boys here, Michael and Jay, and then, well, have a whole bunch of stuff ready for you guys at the tail end. But this has been the Anatomy Crosscast, and we will be back as soon as possible. Later, guys.
Later.
Alrighty. Welcome, ladies, gentlemen, and everything possibly in between, back to the first date session of sorts with Reminitions here on the Anatomy Crosscast. I am the founding host, your host tonight, your host today, and for the last 2 parts of the session, Sean Cross. Over on Sean Cross, I think, hopefully by now we're at 990 subs. I don't know if that's changed since the first part, but nonetheless, it's good to be back. It's good to be kind of digging into the second half. And, well, now with Jay, the frontman, Jay Muller, frontman and vocalist of Reminitions, and apparently the lore archive guy for the band, right? We're going to be digging into the second half of this first date session, depersonalizing Jay and having him talk all things Reminition lore. How are you doing today, my friend? I know you took like a fucking 5-minute shower or something.
Yeah, I'm feeling great. Refreshed.
Good. Hell yeah. So, with that in mind, then, let's dive right into the questionnaire for the second part of this show. And then once we have some more casual, more clickbait questions, we will then go under the skin of Misery Eternal in its entirety. And hopefully, as I'll be putting in chat here pretty soon in the TACX Reminitions chat, hopefully we can get Michael Villalta at the tail end of the session to kind of reminisce on how this session went as per a first date, right? You want to wonder how your first impressions were with this new person, with this new individual, the individual being Reminitions.
Mhm.
And not only that, but we haven't even interviewed the entirety of Reminitions yet. So that's also why it's called a first date crosscast.
Mhm.
Next time, we hope to get the rest of the band, if not at least 2 more pieces of that puzzle, learn more about how Reminitions' brain, how its bones, blood, all of its muscle tissue works, how it operates, right? As per the original name of the show, the Anatomy Podcast, regarding every band session by session as if it was one sentience, right?
Mhm.
So, question one then, as we attempt to have Jay depersonalize and pretend to be this sentience called Reminitions, what was the name what was the reason behind the name Reminitions? What substance is there to the name? What's the roadmap that kind of led to that? Like, of course, this is talking about Reminitions' birth. Its name, its birthright name, right? So, what can you tell me about the lore behind the name?
So I think in 2014 is like when I joined Reminitions, and Reminitions was already called Reminitions. They had already had a vocalist, and they were like performing a couple here and there, and like mostly just kind of having fun. Just other friends of theirs were in bands, and they love music, so it never started to be anything serious like whatsoever. Coming into it, I didn't even know what Reminitions meant myself, but I'm a big fan of Final Destination, and I remember the word like premonition being thrown around like a lot. And so Reminitions isn't like in the like dictionary, but in the Urban Dictionary, it's basically a vision of the past, just like a premonition is a vision of the future. So
Ooh,
because it's kind of it sounded different than what everyone was coming out with. It doesn't really have like too much like I don't know, like gore or horror. Like you can't really tell just from the name alone like what we are, but it felt like it was kind of different, and we kind of stuck with it for so long. And there was plenty of times that we wanted to start new again, but we had hit such crazy milestones with that name that it just was kind of hard to think of that, you know. And now it's kind of you know, we're here years later, and it's always in the back of our mind to like rebrand, but that name is kind of just built, it's just like into us now, you know. So I think we're just gonna keep going with it until we die.
that's cool. I like that. And not only that, but the thing is, sometimes, often in our own personal lives, I've met a couple people, including myself, even. We have these short eras, or even just like months, maybe even a single year, maybe even a single week, where the name that was given to us by our creators, and by creators, I mean our parents, right?
Mhm.
There are sometimes I can even mention myself as an example where I didn't want to be known as Sean anymore, because Sean is my legal first name, but Cross
Right.
is not my legal last name for privacy's sake.
Mhm.
So for, I think, what was it, at least a month or two, I remember wanting to go by my middle name,
Mhm.
which is Cameron, and I'm like, does that work? Do I look like a Cameron? Do I look like someone with the beginning letter of C or K in my name? I don't know. And I kind of experimented with it a little bit. And it was mainly because my biological father, went by the same name, and I wasn't exactly fond or proud of him at the time. I'm like, no, I want to go by a different name. Like, I don't like this dude at all. And really, I still don't, but that's besides the point. So I wanted to go by Cameron, but then after a long time, I'm like, you know what? I might share the same name with my biological father, but the thing is, I can be a better version of him. He was
Right.
already planning for me to kind of carry his ambition, carry his name. And even if the name kind of scrapes like chalk on a chalkboard, just like that sensation is like, or maybe even being thrown off a skateboard and you're dealing with concrete, you're dealing with the grit that comes with concrete, and maybe you scrape yourself. It has that same sort of action, that friction with it. But most importantly, oftentimes we're not comfortable with our birth given names. But
Right.
then over time, if you're like me, and you just prefer to go with that's how it was meant to be. It might not be the most convenient thing for me. I might not be the biggest fan of it yet, but perhaps it's important to give your own personal substance and your own personal comfort to that name, and kind of like, you know what? It's weird, it's strange, it's going to catch people off guard, but let's roll with it. Like
Yeah.
it's been there, it's been there for a long time. So boom.
Right.
So great answer to that first question. because not often do we have bands that basically provide the, I mean, we weren't planning to call it that, and it even kind of sounded strange, but then after a little bit of time, we went with it.
Yeah.
It's a very, very unique approach to the name because, of course, like you said, rebranding and renaming a band and a collection of people, collection of musical minds, well, it's a lot easier than just going by a different name as a person. So, and I mean, it's a lot more casual. There's not nearly as much consequence or repercussions for it as
Right.
far as the other people, your loved ones, your family who might know you or understand you by that original name. But
Right.
question 2 then, continuing to depersonalize a little bit, but also almost astral project from that sentience that is Reminitions and look from a bird's eye view, not as a member of the band, but as an outsider perspective. What genre would you classify Reminitions with? Because I know for the most part it's been like heavy metalcore, deathcore, but at the same time, as per earlier in our conversation, you guys want to go beyond those genre-ratic labels. So comfortably then, at this point in time with your discography, is there a specific niche or maybe a subgenre that you would want to attempt to fit Reminitions into? How would you classify Reminitions comfortably from a genre-ratic perspective?
I would definitely, I would say deathcore is something we've been like just honing in on, and then kind of just like stretching the boundaries of like what people know as deathcore.
Right.
That's kind of like, I would say, like our most main influence. But we've all, like, a lot of us in the band grew up with like the love for metalcore. So like when I listen to music, like sometimes the vocalist stands out, obviously, because I'm a vocalist, so that's probably like the first thing that I pay attention to. But sometimes I catch myself busting out my air guitar, like more than even like wanting to do vocals. Like I'm over here like, dude, this riff is just ridiculously good. Like I can't even help but pull out my air guitar every single time. So there's in those instances, I feel like that's the metalcore side of me who like really loves like the instrumental side, and like you can hear it more in metalcore than you can deathcore at times, because a lot of our stuff is blast beats and like I'm screaming, I'm screeching, like I'm doing like the ugliest noises over really good riffs that you can't really like, that don't shine so much, you know.
Right.
But definitely deathcore is like where we're hitting. And then what I want to do for this full length album that we're working on is I want to incorporate more of like the trap beats that we've been doing.
I see.
Then we want to we're adding like some piano, we're adding like more of the gospel choir kind of stuff. We're
Yeah.
definitely basically just like taking what we already have and just adding more on top of it. And just honestly like want you guys to be able to like feel like it's a movie. Like if you closed your eyes and you're just like, there's so many things going on in this song. Like it's not just the vocals, like there's piano, there's choir, there's riffs, there's breakdowns, there's singing, there's like metalcore parts, there's trap. Like they've given me so much to listen to that I don't feel burnt out. Like there's this side of Reminitions I can listen to for like when I'm like at the gym, and then there's some of it I can actually listen to like at work, believe it or not, which would be like really hard for us to accomplish. But I mean, in Hot Topic, I mean, in any skate shop, like perfect.
Yeah, fair
Um,
enough. You want to be easier access to market, and that way you can kind of stretch the discography and stretch the variety, the musical compositions across various forms, whether the more hardcore like elitist counterculture and then the easier access gateway
mhm,
counterculture that we see in Hot Topic today, at
right,
least compared to what used to be like a Slipknot music video looking store, for Hot Topic and
exactly,
shit. Different
exactly.
time. So then the next question would be, compared to other bands in the genre of deathcore, what so far, not that you're hoping to accomplish and you're hoping to do, but what do you think so far has helped distinguish Reminitions from the rest of the bands in the deathcore community? And to be honest, this doesn't have to allude to or mention musical compositions or musical variety. Like, if we're continuing to astral project from that sentience that is Reminitions, what has been something that's kind of helped you be like, oh yeah, this is definitely Reminitions as far as its overall identity?
Yeah. That's a really good question. So I think there's two things, because there's like the live version of us. So like you could come see us live and you can be like, oh, like Reminitions live, like the energy is nuts. Drummer is like doing fills that are insane, and he's still finding time to like smile up there, and even though he's doing like gravity blasts, like. Then we got my guitarist over here who's just like shaking his head for real. Like we give so much energy, and I see, I mean, it depends on like if it's a big touring band and they're just like, I'm not gonna go ham every single day. Like I'm on tour for like a month. I gotta be chill, And sometimes we come to watch them, and I'm like I want you to go ham every single day. Like I want to see the you that I see online. So I feel like what sets apart like us is differently is we really take that like into account, and we like make sure that we come with the energy every single time, like as if it's the first day of tour, like for every day. Um, and then I think as far as like our tracks and like whatnot, man, that's hard as far as tracks go. I mean, me as a person, like I feel like I'm so annoying with like promoting my band that may set apart a little bit. As far as our sound goes, I feel like what I strive and like what we mostly me, I know Michael and like as far as instrumental goes, like they just write what they love. Like they're not trying to like impress anybody. They're not trying to like reinvent the wheel. They're like literally writing like what makes them happy and like what challenges them as a person. Because I can tell when my guitarists are like, man, like I remember writing this piece by piece, but now that we're playing it like all together, what the hell did I do to myself? Like this is so hard. But I see them like they don't give up. They try their hardest. Like I know it stresses them out, but I love that they're challenging themselves, because like that's what speaks like to me. Because I'm challenging myself like like I'm putting myself out there with trying like new techniques. I'm putting myself out there with trying like new things with my voice, and you guys are doing the same thing with like the instrumentals. And so I feel like I always go into the studio and I try to make sure that I can actually do everything that I do on the track like live. I wouldn't want to like get famous or like get a like real known for a certain sound that I couldn't do live. um so I think that's one thing that sets us apart, is just like we're overthinkers, and we're perfectionists, and like we're trying to literally like just experiment, and not like we don't want people to like know what we're gonna come out with next. Like that would be like my favorite outcome. Like if people look at Reminitions, I don't want them to be like, why do I need to listen to the next full length? It probably sounds like the last one. I want every song to be like, dude, what are they gonna do next? Like what kind of sounds are they gonna do? What kind of breakdown are they gonna do? Because like every song it always hits me with some sort of surprise. So like I want everyone to keep tuning in like for every release.
Fair enough. So, if I may, I think one thing that kind of stood out, and this is something I plucked from that first part, right? Because you're talking about live energy and the fact that there have been so many bands over the years that you see very specific days on a tour where they're just going feral. They're very, very feral. And then you think back through counterculture, music history, and the live history, right? Seeing these bands unleash hell, but then over time you see them like they either burn themselves out or they never wanted to do that, and it was more like, hey, we have to bleed, sweat, and cry for now, but once we don't have to, we don't want to. What I like about Reminitions and what you're telling me right now is that not only are Reminitions, and they've been ready to bleed, sweat, and cry, maybe even vomit with how much they're crying, dry heave. They want to do that. as much as possible. That way you see live a feral and almost rabid level of ambition and passion for
Right.
what you guys do. And
Right.
therefore, I quote, we want to bleed, sweat, and cry, ambition and impassion, end quote. And I really like that. That's powerful shit.
Yeah, because I want you guys to see us live and like you guys can see that we're hungry to do it every day. Like I want you guys to not I don't want to just speak it online like, man, I can't wait to tour every single day, and then you guys come see me on tour and you're like, he looks miserable. He looks like he doesn't be here. I want you guys to just be like, dude, every date that they've been posting footage, they look like they're foaming from the mouth. Like they are ready to do this every day. And like I need to see this in person. Like I need to pay to see this, and like that's what I want. Like I don't want you guys to come or to see us come to your city and just be like, I've already seen them online. It's like, no, nothing I've ever seen. Like I want you to feel it. I want you to like I want to come to your city and like prove to you that we're worth hitting that follow button for.
Yeah. And not only that, but thinking upon the identity and the branding, the marketing strategy behind the name, no matter where you are in the history, the legacy of Reminitions, whether you're 2 album cycles out from now, hello, future people, and you happen to be watching this, you happen to be listening to this to get a little bit more of an intimate experience with Reminitions, well, you're already having to reminisce and dive headfirst into Reminitions upon their ambition from the beginning. So then you see them live, you see the feral foaming at the mouth ambition and passion that they want to keep consistent, but then you're already reminiscing and you're already looking back saying, what the hell are they going to do next? And then you look to the future. I like that. Good shit. So this is a new one. I literally just came up with this question, and I'm kind of like shooting myself in the foot, saying, why haven't you asked this before? In the name of depersonalized sentience identity for any counterculture band that has happened to jump on this show. This question alludes to that sentience and going beyond that sentience generations before. So something that's been really important to me with only one song out, one demo song out with my own band, Blind Without Our Failures, is embracing the heritage, embracing potential lineage beforehand through the identity of other bands. And then I think to the quote DNA of my own band, which so far consists of the last 10 seconds of life for groove, a good balance between groove and heavy. Make them suffer for a good balance between blackened level heavy and piano or even female vocals. That being with the new self-titled album, not as blackened, but definitely leaning more to cyberpunk shit.
Right.
Shrine for its very, very, very culty blackened heavy aspects that are almost unrivaled in counterculture to me. While She Sleeps for the sense of entire band choir, and then Silent Planet for lyrical depth. That would be the DNA for and the root bands for my own project, Blind Without Our Failures. So let me be the first, let Reminitions be the first band of many that I asked this question to. If there were any root DNA bands alluding to fathers, mothers, the generation before that then contributed and created Reminitions from that outsider sentient perspective, what would be 3 to 5 DNA bands that, in your opinion, for Reminitions?
Man, oh man. I guess to even like for me to even like want to scream or even want to be in heavy metal, like that has to be part of the DNA for myself to even be like exposed to the genre. And for that it had to be As I Lay Dying. As I Lay Dying was just like not even like his vocal range was something that stuck out to me. It was more of like the riffs, the breakdowns, the fierceness of like just his vocals just sounded angry. and then the music videos were like really sick. So I would have to say, for me, As I Lay Dying is part of that. Um, I think Beartooth is also something, and that was more of seeing Caleb come from being like an attack and then just kind of spawning off and being Beartooth and now being like one of the most famous bands in the world. That helped me kind of like believe that I could do something like that you could start from something small as just like the guy on the keyboard in the back who did backup vocals to then being like the lead singer of Attack to then being the lead singer of Bear. Like it just kind of made me see a track that I was like, okay, like he's not like robotic. He doesn't have like some special treatment. Like he literally he went through the trials and I mean that was kind of something that I looked into and that kind of started me doing vocals because that was one of the songs I used to try out for Reminitions was a Beartooth song. So
That's
that kind of
fucking sick.
vocal kind of that vocal style today, like I hadn't learned all the techniques or like mouth shapes or tongue move like tongue positions. This was just like I'm gonna scream my loudest and I'm gonna try to control it. And so that was done with like a Beartooth song. So that'd be definitely part of it. And then as far as like my energy and my presence and my movement, that definitely has to go to Spite. Like without Spite, it's not like what Darius is doing is like unheard of, but the what I've talked about as far as like foaming from the mouth and like that level of intensity, like I saw that happen in a room full of like there was like 30 or 40 of us. It was like Spite, Body Snatcher, my band and like another band, and there wasn't a lot of people there, but he literally had the whole room moving. Everyone was trying to grab the mic and everyone knew all the lyrics, and it just really I was like, I want this. Like I don't care if it's 40 people, I don't care if it's 1,000 people, but like what I just saw right now, I'm a fan for life. And I
Yeah.
after that it's like no matter what Darius does, if it's like solo project or whatever, like this guy embodies like the energy that Mitch Lucker gave me, and but I'm seeing it in person and I'm seeing it be created and I'm seeing what's possible from a very like early stage. And so that also that the stage presence, I would say that would be like band 3. And then Suicide Silence, of course, like I was cannot tell you how captivated I was with Mitch Lucker, like from the movements to the tattoos to the vocals to the recording sessions. Like I would
Yeah.
obsess over watching how he would record, and I have yet to do it. I think I'm going to do it for the first time for this full length album. But it's basically I when I do my vocals, I scream directly into the studio mic and I kind of move my hands kind of around it, but I never cup the studio mic, and I've never used my hands to kind of do a different sound.
Yeah.
And I never thought of like what would it sound like if I cup my hand. And I used to watch Mitch Lucker do it. I've seen like Phil do it just to create more tones, maybe like a good layer that I can't get from just a natural scream. But I want to start experimenting and like leaning into some different stuff like in the studio. And then fifth band. Oh god, okay. The last one. So this one has to be
The last
important.
one. It's like fuck.
Yeah. I guess I would have to say Linkin Park randomly.
Hmm.
I think that's where I get my idea that I can mix trap beats and like actually somewhat rap mixed in with screams, and that it's already something that's out there and something I grew up like obsessing over. So I really think that had to that had to happen for me to know that I could do both, that I'm capable of doing both. And not even like just like we just talked about like heavy metal bands that I guess that were in the DNA of Reminitions, but like
Yeah.
there's even random rappers that I would have to say that's part of the DNA, because I love rapping, and so if I feel like I can rap it, then I can rap scream it, and then
Yeah.
it's just kind of like I can do this, like I just have to do it the right way. I can't force it into the songs. Like it has to flow for it to
Yeah.
work, So yeah, I
Right.
would those.
Sweet. Did you end up listening to the new Linkin Park album yet?
Not whole, but I've been catching the music videos like as they've
Yeah.
been released, and they're freaking catchy.
Dude, honestly, I'm very happy with how after so long now, we finally get an album. We finally get an album from a well-seasoned, true counterculture woman, that being Miss Emily Armstrong. She did incredibly. I think the only thing that was missing from the album, I was really hoping for the tail end song to have a little bit more departure substance to it, maybe like a thank you to Chester or anything like that.
Yeah, that'd been cool.
But maybe that'll be next album. It kind of feels like too most of the From Zero album was like literally done just in studio, just like track by track. You hear different audio samples throughout the entirety of it that make it sound like they just kind of like it was her audition was just recording an entire album utilizing lyrics, and then boom, they just recorded one. And if that's the case, it's fucking sick. Like I really like that.
Yeah.
What are some of those rappers that you would mention?
I'm a big fan of like Eminem, Lil Wayne, Tech Nine, a lot of ones that just like like I don't even morph words to make sense. Like it's just crazy. Like they make you want to like you're not just hearing someone like rap really fast. You're like, I actually want to look up their lyrics, and then you look up their lyrics, and they're just like, wow, like these actually are bars. Like these are actually like not only are they rhyming, but they make sense and they have hidden meaning and they're clever. So
Yeah.
I really like that a lot. And then someone who's kind of already doing like the stuff that I kind of want to do is I am Jake Hill. He's like very good at mixing trap beats and then throwing in some breakdowns, and I'm just like, that's what I want, bro. Like I want to mix both my worlds, but successfully. I don't want it to be messy. I need it to flow good. I need to make sense. Because I mean, like, there's so many people like Data Remember mixing heavy metal with pop punk. Like there's certain things that people never thought of that would go together, and it's not like there's not already like rap and metal, but I just want to do like my stuff. Like I want to Ghost Main type fast, stuff, because I can rap like really fast. But I haven't channeled that into doing like Zelly from Paleface fast, because that screaming takes so much more different breath. So it's like I listen to everything that Zelly does. I listen to it, and I turn up my volume really loud, and I just try to challenge myself to be like, okay, if I ever had the opportunity to do this part, because he's on like a Victim song. He's on a Left to Suffer song. And sometimes I get the opportunity to go up on stage and like they'll be like, hey, what song do you want to do? And I want to successfully one day do a Zelly feature, like really good. But I'll turn it up really loud and I'll listen to the breaths. I'm like, okay, so he's like da 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 da. Like, so I'm like listening, I'm like, all right, so he's taking these very, very deep breaths, spitting out as much as he can, and there's still air in the chamber, and then he'll take another breath, and then he'll do one that lasts the whole chamber of breath. And like it's just strategically crazy as a vocalist to do what he does. But I'm a fan of like that style of rapping.
Fair enough. No, I am too. And I think upon the release of my own band's first full length, whenever that happens, the title track, I'm either trying to get David Gunn from King 810 involved in that. And it is specifically because King 810 has been such a fascinating band for me. I don't fucking advocate for any of the shit that him or any of the other boys in the band have done in the past, in which, well, those things landed him in jail. Like he's hurt some people, he's messed with some people's lives, but really that's just because of the area that he was raised in, and that's why the music has always fascinated me.
Right.
So then I think of that, and I think of the main theme of this first full length album. I'm like, oh, dude, hopefully I can get either him, Hunter from Hunt the Dinosaur, or maybe even good old Jay here featured on that.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, I wrote it just perfectly, where it's like like it kind of has that level of speed to it. It was like like that type of beat for the
Yeah.
rapping, and I'm like, holy fuck, how did I write that? Because I wrote it at a mall, just out of nowhere, and I was like, I need for this title track. Whenever it is recorded, I need this title track to have a little bit more oomph to it.
Yeah.
So it's like,
100%.
yo, what if I write a rap part in there, or like a,
Yeah.
something that Bronze or Hunt the Dinosaur or David Gunn could do? And I'm like, it's like the guy like writing, but there's like fire. It's like this shit's gonna be good. Like,
Yeah, no joke. And
but
sometimes it's very difficult too when you're looking for a feature, because you want to make sure you can even like do like what they're gonna do, like if you're gonna have to perform it live like at some point. And so like so many of the ones that we've chose, I've challenged myself. I've forced myself to be like, because if let's say I got Zelly to do a Reminitions song, it's like I'm gonna have to do that. Like I'm such a like big critic of myself that I would not perform that song unless it was like spot on.
yeah,
And some of them are like very hard to do. Like not a lot of people know, but on Something's Killing the Children, we had the vocalist of Worm Shepherd on that one.
right,
And there's a whole bunch of stuff that happened with Worm Shepherd. So when we released the song, we basically took Devin out of like the whole thing. And at that point, before all that, once we first got his mix, it was insane, because I was just like, how am I going to do this live? And it's still something that's like difficult for me, but I put myself in that driver's seat of like, I want to grow as an artist, and like, he's just a human like I am. And like, there may be something that like very special about his vocal cords that are different than mine. Like maybe I'll never ever do that, but if I can at least learn like that technique, and then I can add my own voice to it, it won't necessarily sound like Devin, but it'll be the same tone,
right,
just more like in it. And so as we've been playing these shows, I'm slowly figuring it out. Like I'm understanding like where he's pushing the noise. And it's crazy because like it's something that I learned as far as like I'm pushing air more through my nose than my mouth, and it
yeah,
gives a completely different tone. Like once you open up and it, the only thing that is crazy is it just like you could feel the air coming out of your nose, almost like you're blowing your nose,
yeah, breathing
But
fire.
yeah. But it creates a completely different tone with your highs as well. Like your highs just coming out of your mouth and you yelling your loudest is like a certain high, and then when you run it through your nose, it almost creates that like fry. It just sounds like a very like white noise, just crazy.
Yeah,
Because of that feature though, it really made me dive into my vocals, really dig deep and be like, okay, like how the fuck is this happening? Where's his tongue? Where's the noise coming out of? So that one tested my abilities. Darius's part on the Reaper, like that
yeah.
was
Oh, I'm sure.
at that time, I didn't know gutturals. Dude, it was just, I just couldn't believe once I heard that. I was in such excitement just because it was Darius and he like absolutely murdered his part. But knowing that I had to do it was just like, all right, Jay, time to
Yeah,
buck up. And so far with all the features, they've all challenged me enough, and I've been able to somewhat do them. But Zelly is the one that I'm scared of. That's the one that I really scared of it. But I want that under my belt. I want to understand how he does it. I want to just apply what he does, and then the future Reminitions, who knows what that's going to sound like once I learn that. So it's almost like I'm an avatar. I'm just
yeah.
going to different vocalists and just taking what they learned and learning it. I'm like, all right, thank you, and then I'll go to the next one.
No, seriously. Like the thing is too, I remember when I first started learning how to do heavy vocals and shit, because I've been doing that for a long time now, whether clean or heavy. And then because of Wage War, I kind of utilized that as practice as far as mastering enough breath that you could bounce in between those.
Mhm. Right.
That's been a big thing. And not only that, but with how Cody does his higher, like his higher singing and shit,
Yeah.
kind of nasally, but not too nasally.
Actually.
And then you have Britain, who does his heavies. Like having to bounce in between those over the years has really helped me learn how to, like, for example, take the role of main vocalist, but also fill in for feature vocals if I have to. But most importantly, I think it's actually really important to merge or lean into doing voice impressions for vocalists.
Yeah.
Because once you learn how to do specifically what Dan Watson or Tyler Shelton or literally any of these vocalists, there's so many, and plenty of them have their own thing to contribute to the vocal spectrum. And I call them vocal spectrums. It's like, well, yeah, sure, the could sound very similar for a lot of people. But then how do they do their more more nasally shit? How do they sound different from this other vocalist? For example, Dan Tucker is probably one of my favorite new vocalists because he kind of hones in on those spectrums and those techniques that we're all familiar with. But because he's in such good shape physically, he really dives headfirst into that, and he makes it more consistent and he makes it last longer. I think that's one of my favorite things about Dan Tucker right now. So then, you do voice impressions over the years, and well, a lot of people can do a Mickey Mouse. A lot of people can do an Elmo these days as far as just actual voice impressions. But I think doing various heavy vocal spectrums, that's another level. And a part of me is trying to manifest seeing a whole bunch of different really talented vocalists doing I cover Enterprise Earth's fail-safe policy exactly like Dan, and I try to, like, they have their hair swooped over, maybe they're wearing a wig, and they're like and like, they're doing exactly what he's doing. I kind of want to see that in the future from heavy vocalists. Like, how do you truly understand what you're listening to? You do? Challenge accepted. Try to sound like Dan Watson. Watson, he chews on his vocal, like he just, it sounds like he's just chewing on it. But I love that. So anyways, voice impressions for heavy vocalists, right? So now I think would be a solid time, a fantastic time, this far into the process, us getting closer and closer to finishing a year fermented session. Let's go ahead and dig under the skin of Misery Eternal in its entirety. So we first enter an imaginary scenario. We've done this plenty of times before now, dotting across various mediums. For a Swedish death metal band called Gluttony, we ended up going into an old, like, what is it? Book? No, I'm trying to. Blockbuster. There we go. We went into a Blockbuster and we found a horror tape with the respective album being encased in a VHS tape. We've done a whole bunch of books. We've done shrines, just in the woods somewhere for whatever reason possible. So if it wasn't an album, I guess, or two EPs smashed into one, what creative medium would you want to harness this into?
Yeah, VHS tape would be really cool.
VHS tape. Okay.
Yeah. Cool.
So
that or maybe like a Sega Genesis cartridge, something that could mark like my childhood, but with a Reminitions logo. Something that he was born during this time, so this would explain why he talks about this stuff, or something that something linked to video games.
yeah VHS I think works really well too, because you always have to rewind it. You always have to reminisce upon it.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, that's a really good one.
Yeah. So you see this VHS tape in your local Blockbuster, rest in peace, Blockbuster. And you see what is, when you open up the case, both sides of the Misery Eternal album cover. So then you close it and it's like, what the hell is this? It just says Misery on one side of the cover, Eternal on the other. You got this weird statue in the middle, the guy with the cow mask, the lady on fire. Why is she on fire? That doesn't seem comfortable. And then you open it up. And maybe because I know VHS tapes, especially the plastic ones where you just kind of clicked it closed, they didn't really have anything on the inside.
Yeah, blank.
Yeah, it was usually blank.
Or it was
so
like a
maybe
little coupon of some
yeah, a little coupon. So maybe then you see, because it's not on the outside, it's not on the back. They decided to mess with you that way, the boys in Reminitions. So then you open it up, and maybe underneath the VHS film chunk of plastic, there's like a little manual, but this also ends up being the track listing. It tells you what you need to know, but most importantly, similar to a book or similar to the back of a modern day DVD, digital booklet, digital case, whatever, metal, steelbook case, there we go. Maybe similar to a steelbook case for the sake of collectability, there's a summary that's introducing you to the contents, everything you need to know about Misery Eternal. This also works for books because there's that back of the book summary, right?
Yeah, right.
So if you could compact into a small chunk of passage the lyrical themes of this record into a fancy quote, what would that fancy quote read for the entirety of Misery Eternal?
I think it would start out with something like maybe like chronicles of someone who's lost everything. Something to kind of like set the tone of like why Misery Eternal is even like the song title. Something like chronicles of somebody who lost everything. Take a step-by-step look. That's a hard one. So I'm an overthinker. This could be a book one day, so knows.
So, I mean, from even the imagery provided on both of these album covers, what I see and the impression I get is on one side, we have this gentleman or this person in the robe with the cow mask on, and they're cooking up some shit. They're cooking up some voodoo or whatever that green magic is with the runes. You have this fountain at the middle that seems to be crying and bleeding. So, and then you have the woman on the very left, which also then alludes to unholy as a single, and surrounded by these little fucking goblins. So then I think encased in this VHS tape and at the epicenter at the fountain where the statue cries, we see Misery Eternal. I don't know the context or why there's a dude in a cow costume or why there's a lady on fire with little demons, but we understand pain. We understand Misery Eternal with this. We understand that on both sides of the table, both sides of the scene, and even at the epicenter, we see depictions of pain that most mortals would prefer to distance themselves from. I guess it's a good thing then that this is an album cover and not real life, or that the chances are that you won't really see this in real life unless if you're in the wrong place or even the wrong pocket dimension, the wrong realm. You do not wish to descend or enter into this realm for Misery Eternal here. This is the space of violet. This is the space of brightened night where you can never rest. Something like that.
Yeah. So, I choose what you say.
Yeah, there we go. I choose you.
Yeah.
So then
that's definitely the feeling.
Yeah, hell yeah. So then, of course, that's without the context, right?
Right.
Part B of question 3 in part 2 would be talking about the album cover and the album cover artist. And for me, from a sense of marketing, from a sense of eventually grabbing something physical, I remember my first pre-order ever was Wage War's Deadweight. I got that Candle t-shirt, I got the CD, and that was without having a job. That was without anything. And I remember, I think, even vacuuming up dog dung in the backyard, just like, yeah, I can't wait to get this CD, this shirt for Wage War. And I thought the Candle t-shirt, if you remember that, I'm not sure if you're a fan of, okay. I didn't understand the new age of minimalistic merch that was coming out, where, you know, they had the candle right here, but then the upside down candle skull on the back. Yeah. I thought the candle skull was on the front. I'm like, man, I cannot wait to get this. Comes in the mail. I'm like, what the hell is this? But
disappointment.
Yeah, right. Only a little bit, but pre-ordering merch, you know, that's one of the biggest things, and the album cover usually contributes to people's likability or gravity, their orbit around the physical merch items. So how did this album cover, this collective 2 EP album cover, get cooked up? What were some of the beginning conversations? Who's the artist? Take it away.
So let me get his name right, because it's spelled funny on here. So it's on Instagram, his name's Haryana_art.
Okay.
And he's just it says right here he's been an illustrator since 2019. And he's actually been like my go-to guy for a lot of like the hot topic type designs that I do, with like the Angry Princess from 13 Ghosts. I've done like a Tanjiro one with him from Demon Slayer. I've done both my Terrifier ones, my Scream one, but I've been going to him for the last couple years, and he blows me away like every single time. As far as like the album goes, so when we dropped Bad Blood Part 2, we had just won a contest, I believe, and I think it was and his name's like Andic Godfinger. He did our Bad Blood 2 artwork, which is a witch burning, which is like my idea, but it's like a witch burning at the stake. And then there's basically like a mob of people like holding her down with chains, like as she's being set on fire. So that was like the seed of what then became the Misery Eternal whole album artwork. From Bad Blood 2, we kind of, I think, stumbled upon the bull mask, one of those Halloweens when that became part of Reminitions, like forever. Once we started thinking of the album artwork, I wanted everything to come together. Things that we had been going through as Reminitions, I felt like it was fate, and I needed to like cement it into something. So the bull mask had meant so much to us in such a small amount of time that I had to make sure that that was part of the artwork. And then because we had already done Bad Blood 2 and we had the witch burning at the stake, when I had the idea of splitting the EPs into 2, I wanted to have the bull mask for sure, and then I wanted to have the witch burning on the other side, so that way we were still kind of on the same track of what we had already put out. But we had no idea that witch was going to be on there up until we kind of sat down there and decided. And I wanted something right in the middle, specifically to tease one side. I wanted the edge to be cut so you would know there what is on that other side. Like, why is it cut? Why didn't they show the whole statue? And so once we chose a statue to be split down, I told him I want the statue to be crying, and I want there to be blood in the fountain, and I want someone drowning in the fountain. And I want the bull to look like how I did in the music video, which is just dressed in all black. I want the witch to be burning, and I want there to be like little monsters dancing around it, like they're chanting some sort of casting some spell of some sort, And so I came to Haryana, and I was like, hey, like I have this idea. and he's never done this at all whatsoever. This is his first time ever doing artwork for a band. And not only that, but I wanted him to do two. And so I've had it in my phone for probably like a year and a half. I've just had it sitting in there because I had that idea a long time ago, and he knocked it out, I think, in like 2 weeks. But that was basically kind of a peek into like the artwork.
Right, right. So of course you ended up having these conversations. You wanted the album cover for the collective Misery Eternal cycle to make reference to many points in the real life history of Reminitions. And this would indeed be concreted imagery, even if it's strange, even if it's like, this is weird. Just like, well, why the hell is you wearing a cow mask? Well, it's like, because we wore it live once. I wore it live once during Halloween. It was fucking sick. It was hot and stuffy in that thing, but I was once the cow shaman or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
And I love that. It's great. So then, more or less, Misery Eternal, it depicts more painful scenarios with the imagery of Reminitions and its most recent, I would say the last year or two worth of real life history and real life experiences, whilst also making reference to the past and reminiscing upon the past.
Right.
Going back. So then after that, we go ahead and dig under the skin. We do track by track lyrical analysis for the entirety of Misery Eternal. So starting with track 1 off of part 1 of Misery Eternal with the cow mask, let's begin by having you maybe take away the most important lines from these songs after you discuss their lyrical context and the meaning behind them. Like, what is this song talking about? What is part 1, 2, all the way up to 7 or 8 of Misery Eternal, right? Or part 9, I think, right? What are these songs talking about, right? What is the first collective, technically full-length album by reminiscing about? So I'll go ahead and pull up the track listing, in which, congratulations, you guys are at currently 31.1 thousand monthly listeners. Good shit.
Yes, thank you.
We start with Chamber of Flesh.
The blood moon casts a shadow through the dead trees. There, in a nightmare-filled burial ground, you'll find the chamber of flesh. Bones scattered as far as the eye can see.
Featuring Taylor Barber of Left to Suffer. So, why was this the first track? 1. 2. Why did you end up wanting to grab Taylor Barber? And what's the story behind the song? What's the story behind Chamber of Flesh?
So, I guess it's number 1 because I strategically wanted to make sure that the song that was number 1 carried someone into song number 2, and then song number 3. I didn't want the fuse to die out. I didn't want to choose a song that maybe I was like, oh, this song is not our best, but I want it to get a lot of plays. So if someone checks this out for the first time, I want this to automatically get some shine, because I just think it's not going to shine on its own. But I didn't feel that way. I needed you to check out Reminitions for the first time, and if you happen to check out that EP, I needed that one song to carry you to be like, okay, like that was crazy. What's song 2 like? So I definitely placed the ones that I didn't feel shined as much in the front, and I kind of put them towards the back. Are we talking about each one, or do you want me to just?
Yes, please. Yeah, let's go ahead and talk about each one.
Yeah, for sure.
So, then, with Chamber of Flesh, lyrically speaking, and also then afterwards, reminiscing upon getting Taylor Barber to feature, what's the lyrical context behind Chamber of Flesh?
So, Chamber of Flesh is one of the ones that isn't, it's more fiction than anything. That's more of like the storytelling side that I love to do, because I'm a funny guy, so like I have a lot of stories that I like to tell that end up with you like just laughing a lot, but that just channels it into like my lyrics where I just love storytelling. So I took like my love for horror and I basically closed my eyes one day and I just played out how a horror movie would start for me, if I was the director of everything, and I had to set the scene. So I had to talk about the blood moon casting a shadow through the dead trees, and then someone's walking through this graveyard, and it's nightmare fueled. And the funny thing is, I use nightmare fueled because in Travis, who's in Enterprise Earth right now, he has another side band, and he has a lyric that says "Nightmare Fueled," and I think it's a song name. But I wanted to. He was on the EP, so I was like, I want to tease something that he says on a different song, just to be fun. So I threw in "Nightmare Fueled" like in there, but I wanted to paint this whole scene and you coming across basically a cave, and it's basically the home to a serial killer, and he lives in the mountains and basically um, kills on like unsuspecting victims that are just like hiking, and he cuts their skin off and he hangs it on his wall like a wall flag. Because I just thought it was funny how like I love wall flags so much, and if I was like this crazy killer in the mountains, I would just love to hang like my trophies and just skin them alive and just hang them like a wall flag, and have all my serial killer buddies come to my house and be like, these are all my victims with all these tattoos, like they're
pretty sick skin flag, I'll say.
yeah, one out of one flag right there, So I just had this really weird image in my head, and I was like, let me just like talk about painting the picture as the narrator, and then I'm going to dive into thinking as the serial killer himself. And so in it, like, I'm talking about like the blood spraying on my face, and how I love the screams, and it's just like a symphony to me. And so that one was like really fun to write. When I came out of the studio, I didn't even know who was going to feature on it like at that time. But I think I had caught one of Taylor Barber's posts about him being available for features, and that was just one of the songs that we had like more finished than the others.
Sweet. Yeah. And let's see. Would you say that in reference to the album cover, or the EP cover for Misery Eternal Part 1, just so our listeners understand in the near future, do any of these songs reference or allude to the cow mask guy on the cover? Okay.
Yes, it would be Something's Killing the Children, and we have that one.
Okay.
And then Chamber of Flesh as well. Chamber of Flesh is like the beginning of the Bull Mask like story, and then Something's Killing the Children is the prequel. So it's how I became part of how I became the Bull Mask.
Okay, cool. So I definitely wanted to either dissolve that or concrete that.
Yeah.
Because the Chamber of Flesh song seems to talk about a different character. So I'm like, okay, if the EP covers, collective album cover, are just reminiscences upon the legacy, maybe these are separate narratives. But
right.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was one of those ideas where like when I did the song and when I do the lyrics, like it's hard to have the budget to do what my mind tells me. So like I'm almost like Star Wars, like the reason they started Star Wars where they did is because they didn't have the budget to do from the beginning, and so that's kind of like my mind is so like Warner Bros. Like I'm just like, how are we gonna get a wall full of skin? How are we gonna do this? How are we gonna find a cave that we can film in? So I didn't know that was gonna turn into a music video, but when that song did really well on its own, it started to get my mind thinking of like, okay, like visually I can tell a story, and vocally no one even knows what the hell I'm saying anyways. So unless they really love us and they're gonna dive deep, they're gonna realize the lyrics don't really match what's going on. But as long as I can paint that picture, like that we're heading in the direction of like, oh, there's storytelling now. Because we had always done little like performances in our music videos of just us looking cool in like really cool places with cool clothes. But we did Bad Blood 2, which was kind of like a Dexter vibe, where I had tied my drummer to a table and I wrapped him in like wires, and it's me kind of fighting with the thoughts in my head of being like a serial killer. And that was the first time I'm like, okay, like we don't look like cheesy. Like I don't want to force a music video of like us trying to like look cool and we just look dumb. Like I want to make sure this is hard, you know. And after we did that, I was like, okay, like I think we can actually like we don't have to pay actors, you know, to be in our music videos. I think we can do it on our own for a couple music videos and save some money that way. And so we started to just kind of like low budget do stuff, and the Chamber of Flesh and Something's Killing the Children, those are all filmed at the same spot. It's like
Oh shit.
it's like it's called Hobbs Grove over here, but it's like Fright Fest or like Universal Horror Nights for like other places. So all year long, there's a whole place that has very creepy like scenery. There's broken down cars. There's like an evil looking carnival tent over there. There's trees and woods and a scrap yard. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, dude, you could do like 50 music videos over here. Like, there's so many angles that look completely different than others. It looks like we're going to different states, but we're like literally in the same spot. And so just so I could really like for the brand drill into people's heads about the bull mask, I was like, we have to make a video with this bull mask. We have to make it make sense. We have to have it feel like a cult. We have to create a dark presence. And then after Chamber of Flesh, we did Something Killing the Children, and I wanted it to feel the same way. Very dark, very gloomy, and then very like put in your head like bull mask, bull mask, bull mask, bull mask, because we kind of we want to make sure that like that kind of sets us apart for the time being.
Yeah, for sure. So that's definitely a big contributor to your identity and your DNA as a band. And I remember earlier you briefly mentioned that the bull mask itself, you kind of like scooped up during some one fateful Halloween, right? So what's the lore behind the bull mask?
So we played Halloween. I think it was actually our show. Like we were the headliners. Yeah, we were the headliners because we did the encore. And right before we played the encore, one of my friends, Richard, he hands me the bull mask that he was wearing, and I put it on, and I performed, believe the whole song, Glass Mouth, with it on my head. And we had already paid one of our friends, Yuli, a really good photographer. He was already taking pictures of us, and so he caught this moment in like 4K. Like he caught this moment in like such good quality. And after that, like I gave Richard back his bull mask, and I was like, thank you, dude, that was cool. And once we got the footage and we posted it on Instagram, it just blew up. It blew up like crazy amount. And there came a time where I just kind of was just like, I need this bull mask again. Like I just kind of want to own it now. Like I didn't even think that we were going to perform it again. I just wanted to, like, that video blew up so much, and we got so many new followers and stuff like that I just wanted to have that as a trophy. And so Richard, I got a hold of him, and I was like, hey, like, how much for the bull mask, you know? And he's like, it's yours, bro. Like you know, you deserve it. Like just come pick it up, you know? And so I drove like 3 hours and went to go pick it up.
Jesus.
Yeah,
3 hours for the bull mask, bro. That's commitment.
Yeah. And he fed me some good pasta. You know, he's just like just super stoked for Reminitions' future. And I sat there and I literally told him, and we hadn't even filmed for another like a year or two, I think. But I sat there that day and I told them, I was like, this bull mask is gonna be like part of the album artwork. This bull mask is gonna be part of like the songs. And I told them, I was like, I want to do a music video where I'm like wearing a robe and there's a cult. Like I painted the whole picture of what became what came to be long time ago to him, just when I went to go pick it up. And it's crazy, like now that we're talking about it, like everything's happening just like I told him. And I then started to get asked a lot at shows to like wear it and also to take pictures of people with it. And I was like, man, this is definitely something, you know. And now I have version 2.0. I had someone from Australia make an actual mask maker make me one by hand, and it has like real bull horns, but it has buckles on the back of my head, so it's way more cemented to my face, and I can perform more with it without it feeling so wobbly.
Yeah.
And I've only used it 4 or 5 times, so I'm still getting used to it, but I still have like my bull mask. I'm gonna grab it real quick.
Oh shit, we get to see 2.0.
Oh, this is the old one.
Oh,
I
okay.
have, I think 2.0 is in my car.
Okay.
But yeah, this is
Okay.
it's like a burlap material. But you can legit get it from like Spirit Halloween, but he added this, and then he added, I think there's like, yeah, all this red on the face, kind of.
Yeah.
Well, it's on this side, but he added all that red himself, so it just kind of, people are kind of tripped out a little bit. I mean, this is after like the whole Slaughter to Prevail, Slipknot, like masks have already like been there and have been done.
Yeah.
But we're in a new age now where people, there's some people who've never even heard of Slipknot, and they've never even heard of Slaughter to Prevail. Like, so they're just like mindlessly scrolling through social media and they're like, dude, there's this guy in a bull mask. Like, what the hell is this? It doesn't hurt to try. Like, just don't think that I'm over here saying like, oh, like we invented this. Like no one's ever.
No.
It's nothing like that. It's just when you finally find something that takes off and it's your spark, like you have to follow that spark, because you don't know when you're gonna spark again. And this was our spark. As soon as I figured out that we had something, I was like, we need to throw down. We need to do everything. We need to do flags. We need to do freaking like every, you know, like, so it's definitely something you have to decide if you're going to like lean into it hard, or if you just need to move on and find something else like more concrete. But we're cooking right now. Like we don't know what we got, but we're on the track to something. Yeah.
And that's really just the part of finding yourself, just like we have to do in real life. No matter what you're doing, just go with your instincts, and if it feels right, but then you have people getting in your, well, not getting in your way. That's a more condescending way of saying it. When you have people that are in the path and they're like, you can kind of tell over time, you can understand through instinct what it's like to have an obstacle, and then basically you have to make the decision of whether you want to go around that obstacle or not, or kind of surpass beyond their choices. Like, I don't know if you should do this, man.
Right.
I've had a couple situations like that recently in life, to where you know, I had to really hone in on my identity as a person, and just have no hesitancy whatsoever. Because the moment you hesitate, well, you're going to trip. You know, you're actually going to just trip on like the smallest little pebble, like you would on a skateboard. Yeah. And then you eat dirt, and you're like, oh, ow, why did I do that? Well, it's because you're hesitant.
Right.
Go with your instincts, and I quote, no matter the hundreds of choices that you make for yourself, to change yourself, to change your future, there will be at least 100 people to spit in your face for doing so, no matter how productive that choice is. So go with your instincts, people.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
So what's
this is coming from a guy who's like super weird. All right, like I grew up with like I was friends with everybody, but I didn't really like talk to everybody. Like I thought the things I liked were super weird, you know, and like here I am as an adult, like putting my weird mind to use, and people are like buying my merch with my weird ideas. They're listening to my weird songs that came from weird ideas. Like I am weird encompassed in a human being. So don't think your ideas, you know, if you're out there and you want to write songs, like just write them, because like I just got my Spotify Wrap today for Reminitions, and it's the highest amount of listens. I think we got 645,000 streams this year, and it's literally because of this weird mind, So
Yeah.
just do it, just have fun, just like literally, you don't even know what it could be. And I've been on this Reminitions life for 10 years, and I never thought we would get close to 1 million streams for anything, So like, it's insane. Like I know it's discouraging sometimes to like listen to the people around you, but like I only listen to myself, and I've followed my gut, and I've done everything I've wanted to do, and let nobody tell me like no. And this is like where we're at.
So then, we proceed through the track listing and even the first EP. Track 2 would be Bad Blood 2 featuring Tyler Miller Now of Thy Art Is Murder.
No matter where you go, no matter what you do, I'm gonna hunt you down. I'm gonna hunt you down, and then I'm gonna slit your throat. And then I'm gonna cut you open, and then I'm gonna eat your motherfucking heart!
So what's the story behind this one? How did it become the sequel track of Bad Blood 2 compared to the original Bad Blood? What's the lore behind this one?
So the main hook to Bad Blood was the I Wanna Watch You Burn that I start with, like in the beginning of the song. And I wanted to experiment with creating a part 2 of something, hoping that people would check out part 1 if part 2 was good enough.
Yeah.
So trying to get almost like more streams for our older stuff that way. So I created the
Have
part
people
2.
reminisce.
Yeah, have them reminisce on number 1. So part 2 is the same idea. The song is just like a Dexter kind of song where you're a serial killer, where your lust to kill is used to be just at nighttime, but now it's spilling into your day life, and you try to keep composure, kind of also like American Psycho as well. It's one of those things where Bad Blood 2, he's right at the cusp of actually killing the person. Bad Blood 1 is him thinking about it and him fighting the thoughts, and then Bad Blood 2, he has the victim on the table and he's right there on the cusp of killing him or not, and so he's fighting it, but it's closer. And at that point, I think Tyler was still in Aversion's crown when we had him on the song. So it was just crazy that he's in Thy Art Is Murder now. He was also in the Guild as well. The Guild is true. Heavy. So let's listen to all those bands. But yeah, that song was definitely like an experiment, and the only really way too that it hooks to Bad Blood is I have Tyler come in with I Wanna Watch You Fucking Burn. So it took it to the next level.
No, it's good shit. Yeah. So then, without a doubt, maybe Bad Blood 3 will actually be the crime.
Yeah.
It'll actually be the murder. You're like, what happened? Like, well,
he has a heart attack in Bad Blood 3. Doesn't even get to kill.
He's so pissed off. He has a stroke or a heart attack. Yeah. That would suck. What a terrible ending for a serial killer. Then.
Right.
Track 3 then would be one of the tracks really that it really just honed me in and like got me super interested with this band. Of course, I checked out the songs that I did, I think back in 21 or even 22 now. It's been a little bit. And then, I uploaded my stuff on Sean Cross for it. Y'all were like, yo, thank you, dude. I'm like, yeah, hell yeah, dude. And then Cloud Chaser was the next one. So what's Cloud Chaser about? It's definitely got that kind of spite, body snatcher, no gimmick, no bullshit energy about it. Probably one of your best songs, in my opinion. So what's the lyrical context behind this, and maybe how does this connect with the EP art, if it does?
So I really wanted to write a song that it's not necessarily like it's something that can happen to like everybody, but it's basically when you are climbing to the top, maybe you're starting to get this this level of success where you're heading in the right direction, and you start having people pop up in your life that never were there in the first place, and you've always been just kind of like a really cool person, but you could hear that there's shit being talked about you, and you're kind of like in this point where like why are you up in my face like praising me now, and like wanting to hop on this bandwagon where back then like you had nothing but shit to talk when we first started out, you know. And so I wanted to really come at everyone with like, I can see you through your painted face, basically. It's just one of those things where like I don't like when people are fake, you know. Like if they can talk shit, just say it to my face, and like maybe it's even like a misunderstanding, but like I'm always someone that is down to like talk it out. But for this song, I'm done talking it out. Like we're past that. And so this is my song basically to like everyone out there like thinking that I don't see who they really are.
Right, fair enough. And I mean, it definitely seems that there has been a recent uproar with Travis Warland joining Enterprise Earth. So for this song specifically, would you say it parallels in purpose and just happened to happen? You know, it was there, the opportunity was there. Would you say this parallels the circumstances of the other two vocal features so far on this EP? Or was there a specific reason that you ended up wanting to grab Travis Warland as a vocal feature for this song?
So I have my Michael, he's a fan of Aether, and there's been times when Travis has come around with them, and so he's kind of like from the Sacramento like area.
Yeah.
So he's one of those people that we kind of just wanted as like part of our song that was just known around our area. And I'm a big fan of his vocals and his vocal delivery and his patterns, but it was in his other band. And so it was just random that at the time that we really wanted to get him on a track, he had just joined Enterprise Earth as well. So it was honestly crazy. The vocalists that we went with ended up going on to bigger things, and by the time the songs came out, they had already been solidified in those bands, because part 1 and part 2, about like 80% of those songs were already done like 2 years ago. So much has already happened that by the time those songs came out, like you know, those people became more successful.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Honestly, like
Yeah.
his delivery and like his type of vocals, I felt fit that song. And we gave him the whole song raw too. And I was like, what part do you want? Like you pick your part and I'll work around you. And that's what he chose. And his lyrics were just hit home for sure.
Definitely. Yeah. All right, y'all. Welcome back. It is currently the 18th of December, Wednesday. For me, it's 4:04 p.m. I do believe for Jay, it's going to be like 3:04 p.m. They seem to be an hour before us. It's been a little bit, and officially, just speaking for my commentary, this is probably going to be the strangest that I've sounded in a long time, because I'm at the tail end of fighting pharyngitis, which for any vocalist, it sounds funny as shit. But when you actually go through it, well, basically it's difficult to talk, eat, or drink because your throat's all swelled up. It's not strep. It's not a whole variety of other things, so it didn't require any medicine, thank goodness, except for ibuprofen for the inflammation. But shit sucks. And this is probably the most, to a certain degree, this is probably the most intense sickness that I've had in a long time, which it's better that it's not COVID again, I guess. But welcome back. Jay, how are you doing?
Good, are you? Well,
Good.
obviously, you just said.
Not doing too groovy, but the thing is, I'm glad that we're finally here. And funny enough, I wasn't even the one who reached out today, because I was door dashing and shipping them. But earlier today, Jay was like, "Yo, we should get it wrapped up today." I'm like, you know what? You right. So here we are, and now we're going to continue right where we left off from the last session. We're doing Under the Skin. We're almost done with Misery Eternal Part 1, and we continue then, I do believe, with The Weight of Loss. So, what's going on with this? Lyrically speaking, this is the only song on part 1 without a vocal feature or collaboratory feature of any kind. So what's going on with this one?
So this was one of the ones that was more personal than like a lot of the other stuff that I write. This one was for my grandma who like passed away a couple years back, and it was a strange kind of situation where she just went in for something that she had like messed up in her shoulder at in her retirement home. She was playing like the volleyball that they do, and she just went in for something to do with her shoulder, and something went wrong, and it basically like paralyzed like half her body. And then that turned into just went downhill, and she ended up passing away in Florida, and I'm in California, so I didn't even get a chance to say like goodbye or anything to her. So this was kind of like my song to her, and she's always been like super supportive of my band, and this is kind of just like my way of cementing her into like what I do every day. Well, my band at least,
Yeah, no, that's tough. When you have people supporting you along the way, and then for whatever reason possible, as the saying goes, you learn to appreciate people more, and if not before, you just appreciate them more when they're gone. Like sometimes you don't know how much you care about something or someone until they are gone, until they are no longer with us. So when it comes to people supporting anybody in a counterculture band, it's not exactly taboo these days, but still there are some risks, there are some possible repercussions that come with endorsing and advocating for the culture.
Right.
There can be so
Right.
It's like it's always great when you have family to support you, but it just makes it even more powerful blunder when they go through what they go through. They are sick, they're in a not so great medical condition, and then they end up departing. So I'm sorry for your loss, man, and may she rest in peace by all means.
You think?
Yeah, and let's actually go ahead and give her a moment of silence. And really, I provide shout out and spotlight to quite literally everybody who has been supporting me in my journey, Jay and his journey, the boys and Reminitions. It really is when there isn't any guarantee of financial, when there isn't any guaranteed return, right? You're investing into a hobby and you're trying to make it work. It's really the people who are like, man, I can't wait to see you guys explode one day, become big one day. You guys better be rocking our local stage one day. That's really what keeps us going, and that's why it's important to always recognize what comes before financial gain and financial return as far as support. But moving on then, and going to the last track on Misery Eternal Part 1, we have The Red Door. this one, I do believe, you know what? I think I'm remembering this a little bit now, because I do believe this is the one that had a friend from an older band feature, and he's no longer with us either. So you ended up kind of chopping up bits and pieces of that vocal feature and put it as the feature in this song, correct?
Correct.
Boom. So more or less, we did end up conquering the red door. So there we go. We can kind of like a VHS or something. Let's go ahead and fast forward then to Misery Eternal Part 2. We start with the song Pink Cocaine. Very, very strange song name, I will say. So what's going on with this one?
Pink Cocaine was a song name that I've had kind of in my pocket for like a long time. I just didn't know how I was gonna use it. But it was just something that I had heard on the news from probably like 2 or 3 years ago in a different country. Pink cocaine was being used, and it was only like rich people were able to like have it, and they reminded me kind of like the whole blue meth situation with Breaking Bad. And so at a certain point when the song Pink Cocaine was done, I hadn't had a name for it like yet, and the more that I thought about the song, the more that it kind of fit real well, because we had this idea to have a music video shot in an all pink room in Los Angeles. So it kind of like came to be. I was like, all right, like the song's gonna be called Pink Cocaine. It's gonna be shot in the pink room. Like it's all gonna come together like real nicely. And we had that idea kind of for like a year, and it started to kind of play out. And it worked out like real perfectly. And then all of a sudden, all these news headlinings were talking about pink cocaine like in the United States. And so it kind of just was a random coincidence for sure.
Okay. Definitely a darker context, but like when it has a ring to it and it's by itself, just like, what is that? Like, and you're like, well, it's a song by Reminitions. Boom. It makes you reminisce, makes you take a step, look back in time a little bit.
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah,
cocaine,
exactly.
Boom.
And it's kind of like it's a song about like a girl, like cause I'm really good at writing like my breakup songs, you know. That's just like where you can bring a lot of like emotion to the stage and stuff like that. So it's kind of like a girl, so that's why it's like the pink, and then the cocaine is basically like an addiction, you know. It's an addiction that you can't kick, and so I kind of like smeared those together.
I see. There you go. And that's the deeper, darker depths to the song then, is it ends up having a little bit of an emo kick to it.
Exactly.
But at the same time, I mean, I can't lie. I'm not going to pretend that I'm not mostly doing an emo breakup EP for my band's first major effort. So, I would be kind of a hypocrite if I'm like, oh, you made a breakup song. It's like, well, sometimes breakups are really fucked.
Yeah.
Track 2 on Misery Eternal Part 2 would be Blood Moon Lilith. When I heard and saw this track name, this kind of like connected me to the EP, even if there isn't like a blood red full moon in the background. A part of me thinks that there's like some sort of connection between the song name and the EP cover. So let's go ahead and figure out whether or not I will get confirmed or denied on this. Jay, take it away, please.
Yes, it is actually. So the witch in the EP, her name is Lilith, and in Chamber of Flesh, I talk about the blood moon casting a shadow like through the trees. So it's kind of like in the same realm. And in this part, it's Lilith is being captured by the villagers, and she already knows this is gonna happen. She's already had a premonition like times and times like before this is even occurring, and so she knows that this is her final days, but she knows that she has a chance to curse like the earth around her and the villagers themselves. And so as they're taking her to it, in my head it was supposed to be a guillotine, but we ended up strapping her to like a stake just to kind of like hold her hostage for the time being. And but in the story she's being taken to a guillotine and she's chanting a whole bunch of stuff before they chop off her head. And then when they chop off her head rolls and it's like still chanting like as she's headless. And so that was like kind of like my big picture of like the story.
That's crazy. Yeah, and you think back to the science in real life, how like there were some people who ended up, you know, getting kissed by the guillotine, and like their heads were still animating after their heads were off. I'm like, what? Sometimes they'd be like muttering or uttering words. It's like, dude, what?
Yeah.
Got that chicken logic.
Yeah.
It's creepy as hell to think about, but
Exactly.
I'm glad we don't have that many guillotine decapitations today, I guess. It's like, oh no, there's Jerry, but Jerry's still he's still talking smack. Fight back, fight back.
Yeah.
He's just like bouncing around or something. And then you start making reference to The Thing, which I have yet to see, but God, that movie looks so fucking creepy for its time. So then next track 3, would be Something's Killing the Children.
Most people think I'm insane.
What's this one talking about? What's this about?
So Something's Killing the Children is definitely linked to like Chamber of Flesh. It's like the prequel of Chamber of Flesh. So it's just the beginning stages of like how the mask came to be, and it's supposed to the title's supposed to kind of create this monster that is basically like trying to abduct the innocent for his ritual.
Okay. And this would be the guy with the cow mask, or
Yeah, the bull mask.
bull mask? Bull mask. Motherfucker, get it right.
It's okay.
Are they successful?
They are, yeah.
Oh boy.
Yeah, because
Man.
I'm trying to paint this picture that the guy in the bull mask like was one of like the innocent children like from the very get-go, and his job is to basically try to just create a bigger army of, you know, what he's trying to do.
Okay, I like that. Last track of Misery Eternal Part 2 would be Say My Name. Say my name.
I am not in danger. I am the danger. I am the one who knocks.
What's this one talking about?
It's a Destiny's Child cover.
Okay.
No. So say my name is it's kind of also like our song Manslaughter. It's just about taking someone apart like piece by piece that has just been just making your life a living hell, you know, and you finally fight back. So it's definitely like a call out kind of song. It's one of my most popular ones too right now, which is like really cool. I think mainly it's from the Breaking Bad intro.
I see. Okay. Well, that's fun. And I mean, after all, listening to the entirety of both these EPs, then combining into the Misery Eternal Cycle album. Lots of fun stuff, lots of fun content. Very, very fun traders, spite, body snatcher friendly deathcore with little mixes of new stuff here and there as Reminitions continues to experiment. After conducting a lobotomy for Misery Eternal, and after us concluding the first half of the podcast session, talking about bands that inspired all the members in Reminitions, what for you, Jay, distinguishes Misery Eternal from other iconic records relevant to deathcore in your own personal opinion?
Oh man.
For me, I think it's the colors.
Yeah, I think so too. It's very vibrant.
Very vibrant. Not only that, but I think for me personally, the Misery Eternal album cover, I think it brings a good aesthetic to the stage for the near future. Like if you guys had the budget to do props and stuff, and say you just wanted to do a guy with a bull mask in the background, just as he is on the EP, but have kind of green UV, and then maybe I don't know. That comes with a lot of budget and a lot of we need to go to Spirit right fucking now. Yeah, a lot of shit. But I don't know. It definitely, I think those two characters, those two props, they kind of open the gateways and they open doors to where Reminitions can almost get to that eventually one day, that motionless and white level as far as stage props and shit. And of course, still felt feed thus far into that more hip hop influenced deathcore without the gimmicks, just the story that's being slowly pieced together, right? Then you kind of throw all those things together, you throw them on stage, and this is what makes Reminitions. So I mean, that's kind of my take on it. Of course, I'm asking you the question. I'm you know what? I got an answer too.
Yeah, I like your answer.
I appreciate that. So then, other than what I said, same question. Do you got anything else you want to throw in there?
I just feel like we're not really doing anything different than what I've grown up to see, or the things that I like. But I really feel we definitely squeezed out of much of ourselves into this album, and I don't know if some people don't have time to do that, or they don't care enough to do that, but I just really think we put everything we got into these two EPs. And then for sure we really went hard on the imagery for the music videos, at least for Chamber of Flesh and Something's Killing the Children. So I don't know, I try to think as far as hopefully standing out, we're just putting that much more effort than the average band to really bring our songs to life in a movie type of setting.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's why easily, of course, so far in the session, I've said that I can easily see Reminitions going on a national tour with bands like Traitors, Spite, Body Snatcher, maybe even Make Them Suffer. I can see you guys doing that. But then I think about all of the imagery, and I think about the horror movie influence, and I'm you know what? The Common Enemies tour in an alternate reality, I'm really hoping it was Spite and Reminitions instead, co-headlining instead of Body Snatcher and Spite. I love Body Snatcher. I really, really do. But the thing is, I don't think that sense of horror compressed into less gimmicky, but still you can hear creepiness in there. I think that would have worked a lot better between Reminitions and Spite. So
100%.
Then, yeah, I'm just hoping to see more of the lore build up, and therefore more of these pretty strange but original characters and props and visual aesthetics. I'm hoping to see that assemble more and more over time. So one of the final questions, 5 out of 7. How and why did Misery Eternal become a 2-part EP? And this is pretty specific. Then usually it's quote become an EP instead of an album, quote become an album instead of an EP. Technically, this ended up being both. So you pieced it together in 2 halves. So why did you guys end up wanting to like piece it together in two different halves then?
I had an idea of kind of just like a my little campaign of like how long I wanted us to be able to push these songs throughout the year. And so once we were kind of getting closer to the finishing product, I knew that dropping anything in like November, December isn't like the best move because you don't really get too much of an opportunity to win like certain like albums of the year, EPs of the year, just because it's so fresh. People haven't had time to really like digest it. So I knew we had to drop something like in the beginning of the year. And then I was hoping that we could drop something in the beginning and at the end, but it couldn't be full lengths. I didn't want to give out too much and have a whole bunch of songs that were like unheard. So I made sure to kind of have this idea of like, okay, let's drop like 5 or 6 an EP, and then we'll do it in the beginning of the year, and then we'll drop the other half at the end of the year. And then when we do the artwork covers, we'll make them make one big picture, so that way people understand that they're not two separate EPs, that they're actually like they belong together in a full length setting. But I just kind of wanted to give them some now and some later.
That's fair. That's fair. And honestly, like what we were discussing, I think I discussed it a couple times really during the beginning. I've been looking at bands like Distant, let's see, Brandis, I think mainly Distant. They were probably the biggest example during their Aeons of Oblivion cycle that first started with Dusk of Anguish. They had, I think, 2 different EPs after that with a whole bunch of different vocal features. And then they would do Aeons of Oblivion, this bigger, this massive project. I remember seeing that back in, I think, 2021. And I was like, whoa, this is really, really fascinating. Not only are they writing a book for these EPs, but they're slowly piecing together this massive album. And I'm like, you know what? In the future, and this is something for the future or to be blind fans, one thing that we plan to do in the future is kind of utilize the self-titled album formula. But basically, we're going to be piecing together 15 to 20 track super albums, depending on how many members we have in the band when we get our first full lineup. We're going to have all of them write their own 5-piece EPs that then feed into one storyline. And not only that, but for each of the members that are in the band, say that there's 4, well, they're going to be getting a quarter of the album for Blind Without Our Failures, Volume 1, and then there will be the title. It's a mouthful for sure, but I think it'll be really fun to do that. And that's because of bands like Reminitions. That's because of bands like Distant that have made it possible for that to be marketable, for that to be digestible, something that then contributes to such a greater, more massive effort, something that's maybe more worth the hundreds of dollars that some people are willing to invest into merch. It's like, well, what if you got Blind Without Our Failures Volume 1, but you got the guitarists, like the bass guitarists version of that, their chunk of it. There could be a flag, there could be a vertical banner version, and there could be 4 vertical banners that you then kind of tag on your wall as if you're in a castle representing multiple clans. Like, trying to keep the creative juices flowing with that and make it a lot more medieval. And eventually maybe it will make reference more to the Sistine Chapel as far as like a character collage of sorts, which should be really fun. So yeah, shout out to anybody who happens to still be listening to Error after these last 2 years. I promise we're getting new stuff out as soon as possible. But that's enough about Blind. We're talking about Reminitions, bro. Question 6, not really a question. Briefly discuss the future. Shout out to any bands or people, if applicable, regarding the entirety of what would end up being the Misery Eternal cycle. Those who might stand out, maybe any like kind of funny stories that ended up happening during the creative process of these 2 EPs. Like, we want to get all the juicy details while it's still a pretty fresh wound and still pretty fresh on public domain.
I would for sure Shout out Bob. He's the one that mixed and mastered everything and did my vocals, made sure I sounded like a monster. There was countless hours in his studio, like doing all these different vocal ranges and trying stuff I've never tried before, and so he helped out a lot, really push out some cool stuff out of me. Howie from Within Destruction, he helped us a lot on like structuring everything. My whole band, like if they weren't able to play what we were making, like what we wouldn't be able to come out with them, so definitely like my band is the backbone to everything. And then my family, like my mom and my dad, um all those people, like really, like they're the ones that keep me from burning out, and everyone that like listens to our music too is like, I look at those numbers like every single day, and I know the potential that like we have. So I'm really, really working hard on these new songs and making sure it's like the best possible stuff that we can come out with. um as far as bands, like people like Ryan from Titan and Greg from A Moment's Notice, that they live near me, but they're super supportive, and they're always like helping me when they can to help us like grow in that direction. And then we have the promotional company over here, Arcphonic, that's ran by my friend Amric, and so without him, we wouldn't have the opportunities to like play all these big shows and sell all this merch and make the money to put into the record. So he definitely has helped us make it happen. And then right now, like we have some new people like in our court, so that the new stuff we're coming out with is just going to be that much better. But we have management now, we have a booking agent that believes in us. So there's a lot of people that have basically contributed to Reminitions, and we're like definitely working hard right now to not let you guys down with these new songs for sure.
Fuck yeah. Final question, and this is since I introduced this question, really, it kind of feels like an ego feeder. I try not to make it an ego feeder, but it really does feel like one. What band would you want to see on the Anatomy Crosscast in the future?
Who would be cool to see? I think it would be cool to see like the lead singer of Tala. Because he's in the musician's mansion right now, and it'd be cool to have you dissect his band and himself and how that experience is and stuff.
Sounds like a plan. After all, Tala, like I remember comparing them to Korn when their last like major album came out. But a lot of people are like, no, you can't compare them to Korn. Like, I know their logo looks similar and they got a very similar new metal sound, but you can't do that. I'm like, well, okay. I don't know what to compare it to. Like,
I call it like I see it.
Comes to mind. No, it's good shit. Okay, so Tala for sure, and then I mean, yeah, that's already a pretty big one. So I mean, we got some pretty big shoes to fill, and then of course we have yet to get the rest of Reminitions on the Anatomy Crosscast. So with that being said, people, I mean, it's currently 4:33. We got through the rest of that pretty quickly. I do believe that will conclude the first date session with Reminitions from California, a band that we were meaning to get on the show throughout the entirety of this year, really. But I wanted to make sure to wait until the second EP was out. That way we could listen to it and then look to the future, right? So, Jay, I do appreciate you and Michael Villalta's time in jumping onto the show after all this time. You guys are very, very busy, very hardworking musicians, but I look forward to getting the session out. And to everybody currently listening, be sure to provide a comment. I will be doing a poll here pretty soon. I'm going to be doing a lot more polls. That way we can kind of get some more interaction going on with y'all. But this is Sean Cross. This is the Anatomy Crosscast. We'll see you later, guys.